Harry Potter sat in the Gryffindor common room with his two best friends, Ron and Hermione. It was their 5th year at Hogwarts, and they were doing their essay on werewolves for defense against the dark arts. Ron had suddenly thrown down his quill in frustration. "I can't find anything else, and I've only done half a roll of parchment," he cried out. Harry rubbed his eyes to make himself stay awake, but to no avail. He was tired and he needed sleep. He looked at the time. It was 2:30 a.m. Hermione yawned and rubbed her eyes. It seemed that she was also tired. She looked over at Harry and Ron, who were both yawning. She sighed deeply and looked at her essay. True, she had done more than both of the boys, but she still needed more information. She had only done one roll of parchment. Their essay was due in for the next day, and if they failed in giving the right amount, they were threatened with detention for the rest of the year. "Should we go down to the library and see if we can find anything else on werewolves?" Hermione suggested. "It's 2:30 in the morning, Hermione. Are you crazy?" Harry exclaimed. "Well, no, not really. If we all went under your invisibility cloak and used the Marauder's map, we could all go down and see if there's any more information," Hermione said. Harry pondered it for a moment, then smiled. "Okay, let's go. I don't want detention for the rest of the year, considering we're only in our first week." Harry said, "I really don't like Professor Umbridge. She's totally unfair." Ron complained. "I don't think anyone likes her, Ron," Hermione told her friend, while Harry ran up to get the 2 things he needed. When he ran back down, he caught his foot in the invisibility cloak and fell down the rest of the stairs. Ron and Hermione looked at him in alarm. "Oh, Harry, are you all right?" Hermione asked, looking worried. "I'm fine," Harry mumbled, before standing up and untangling the invisibility cloak from his foot. When he'd finished, he quickly motioned for Ron and Hermione to get under the cloak too. As soon as this was done, Harry took out a spare piece of parchment and whispered, "I solemnly swear that I am up to no good." And with that, the Marauder's map appeared. With this done, all 3 slowly made their way to the library under the cloak. After a while of walking, they finally arrived at the library. Harry cheered silently and quickly scanned the Marauder's map to see if anyone was nearby. Filch was on the other side of the castle, along with Mrs. Norris. Harry sighed with relief. "Can we take off the cloak if no one's nearby then?" Ron questioned. Harry nodded. Hermione and Ron took off the cloak and proceeded towards different areas of the library in search of information. Equals 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 equals. While checking for a few books on werewolves, Harry suddenly heard a voice outside the library. He knew instantly that it was Filch. Panicking, he tried to hurry over to his 2 best friends under the invisibility cloak. He grabbed hold of them both by the wrists and pulled them under the cloak. Making sure that they were covered completely, they attempted to make their exit out of the library. Equals 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 equals. While hurriedly running back to the Gryffindor common room, Hermione tripped over the hem of the cloak and fell over, making Ron and Harry fall too. Unfortunately, Hermione, at this time, was wearing her time turner around her neck. As she fell, the time turner managed to fall out of her robes and smash onto the floor. As it broke into tiny pieces, it started to make the 5th year's surrounding spin, making Harry, Ron, and Hermione fall into unconsciousness. Equals 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 equals. Harry was the first to stir. As he opened his eyes, he came face to face with someone very familiar, but he couldn't put a name to the face. "Are you all right, mate?" the person who stood in front of him asked, looking concerned. Harry sat up and nodded, then looked around. He knew straight away that he was still in Hogwarts. Harry, is that you? Harry recognized that voice as Hermione's. He looked over and his heart did a double flip. There was a boy who looked exactly like him, standing over his best female friend. Are you all right? You look like you've had a bad fall, the boy who looked like Harry said, looking at Hermione worriedly. Harry, oh, you're all right, Hermione said, hugging the Harry look-alike. Hermione, I'm over here, Harry said, finding his voice. Hermione looked over and her mouth dropped open. Hold on. If you're over there, then who's this? I'm James, the boy said, blushing. Oh, I am so sorry, Hermione said, blushing bright red at her mistake. It's all right, James said, waving aside her apology. Has Ron come round yet? Hermione asked. I don't think so, the boy who was standing over Ron said. Harry and Hermione's jaws dropped. Professor Lupin, Hermione said, aghast. The boy turned to Hermione, looking confused. Who's a professor? Oh, nothing, Hermione said, looking away. Harry? Hermione. Ron suddenly sat bolt upright and looked around wide-eyed. Where are we? He said, looking terrified. We're in Hogwarts, Ron. Don't worry, Harry said, smiling. The three boys who were standing over Harry, Ron and Hermione smiled and held their hands out to help him up. Harry, Ron and Hermione took them gratefully. Thanks a lot for your help, Harry said. No problem, James said. No offense or anything, but you and Harry look almost like twins, Ron said, staring from Harry to the other boy. Yeah, now that he's awake, he does look an awful lot like you, James, the boy with black hair said. What are your names? Hermione asked. The three boys puffed their chests out as they said their names. I am James Potter. Sirius Black, at your service. The name's Remus Lupin. Suddenly, all three boys looked at Harry, Ron, and Hermione with confusion. Their jaws had dropped in shock. But that's not possible, Ron cried. What's not possible? James asked. That you're Ollie OW. Hermione, what did you hit me for? Ron questioned her angrily while rubbing his head. Harry, realizing what was going on, nodded to Hermione and turned to the three boys. Pleased to meet you. I'm Harry Potter. Ron Weasley, Ron said. Hermione Granger, Hermione said, while putting on a small smile. Nice to meet you. So, how did you guys come to be here? I don't recall seeing you at dinner or in any classes for that matter, Sirius said, looking at them all in curiosity. We just transferred here and we kind of got lost. We need to see the headmaster so we can, at least for now, find a place to sleep, Hermione said, turning to the others who nodded. I see. Well, you can always stay in Gryffindor Tower if you want, Sirius said. Just wondering, what year is it? Ron asked suddenly. James, Sirius, and Remus looked at him in shock. You must have hit your head hard. It's the year 1979, why? Remus asked. Ron's jaw dropped again, but he quickly shut it at being elbowed in the stomach by Hermione. All right, thanks. Hey, what's it you got there? Sirius asked, pointing to the invisibility cloak in Harry's hand and the Marauder's map in Harry's other. Harry quickly stuffed the map in his robe. This is a cloak, Harry said. Remus and James cracked up laughing. You are stupid, Padfoot, James said while chuckling. Sirius pulled a face. Well, it doesn't look like a normal cloak to me. Try it on, Sirius told Harry. Well. Harry looked at Ron and Hermione for support. Just put it on Harry. They might as well know, Hermione said, looking defeated. Harry shrugged and put on the cloak. James, Sirius, and Remus gasped as the reality hit them. Hey, he's got an invisibility cloak, just like you prongs, Remus said, looking astonished. Harry took off the cloak and tried to stuff it into his robe. Luckily, it managed to fit in. So, what are you doing out of bed at? Hermione consulted her watch. 2:30 in the morning. James, Sirius, and Remus shifted around uncomfortably and avoided the stares that they were receiving. No reason. Ron raised an eyebrow as he looked at the three Marauders. Okay, you guys are weird. There must be a reason why you're out of your common room at 2:30 in the morning. Harry immediately started chuckling. What? Ron asked, looking at his best friend. You sounded just like Hermione. Ron reddened and narrowed his eyes at Harry. I will never speak to you again if you say that I sound like her, Ron said, pointing to Hermione, looking disgusted. Hermione, on the other hand, looked rather offended. Who's her? The cat's mother? Hermione asked, making Harry, James, Sirius, and Remus snigger. And also, what's wrong with sounding like me? At least if you sound like me, it means that you actually are sounding sensible for once in your life, Ron. Ron glared at Hermione, while Hermione glared back at Ron. Harry, sensing the tension, quickly cut in. So, could you take us to Gryffindor Tower, then? Harry asked. Before those two decide to kill each other, he muttered. Unfortunately, Ron heard. What do you mean, before those two decide to kill each other? Ron questioned, looking annoyed. Harry muttered something, then looked up at Ron, smiling. Nothing. Come on, let's take you back to Gryffindor Tower, before any of the teachers find us, James said, and everyone else agreed. While walking back, Harry asked James a question. What year are you guys in? We're in 5th year, what about you? Harry immediately grinned. We're going to be in 5th year too, James smiled. Really? Well, this should be an interesting year. We'd better point out the people that you shouldn't mix with, unless you want to become our enemies, Sirius said. Padfoot, James said, looking angry. Don't say things like that. Sorry, Sirius said, looking apologetic. So what house do you want to be in? There are 4 houses called Ravenclaw, Slytherin, Hufflepuff, and Gryffindor. We know, Hermione said quickly. How do you know? Remus asked, looking confused. Read about it in Hogwarts. A history, Hermione replied. I read it to the boys because they're too stupid to pick up a book and actually read. Hey, Harry and Ron cried. We are not stupid. Hermione giggled. Then why don't you two pick up a book and read once in a while? Books don't appeal to me, Ron said. Same here, Harry said, sounding bored. Hermione rolled her eyes. You two are impossible. We know, Harry grinned. So, what house do you want to be in? James asked, interrupting the conversation. Gryffindor, of course. Harry, Ron, and Hermione said in unison. Whoa, okay, that was weird. Sirius looked at the 3 strangely. Hey, look, guys, we're here, James said, making everyone stop and stare at the fat lady. Password, she asked. Jelly beans, Remus answered, and with that, the portrait swung open. Harry, Ron, Hermione, James, Sirius, and Remus clambered into the common room. I think you guys had better sleep on the couches tonight. Then we'll tell Professor Dumbledore in the morning about your arrival, Remus said, and everyone nodded in agreement. See you in the morning. And with that, the 3 marauders walked up the stairs and into their dormitory. The next morning, Harry awoke to someone jumping on his couch. He looked up to see James jumping and yelling. Wake up, sleepyhead. Today's a new day. Harry looked to Ron and Hermione to find them both awake and dressed. They were sniggering at James. What time is it? Harry asked while yawning. 7:30, but we got to be down in the Great Hall so we can tell Dumbledore about your arrival, James said. James, you can stop bouncing on the couch now. I'm up. James stopped bouncing and started blushing. I didn't realize I was still doing it, he muttered, while Sirius, Remus, and another boy started laughing. Who's this? Ron asked, pointing to the boy standing next to Remus. Hello, I'm Peter Pettigrew, Peter said, waving merrily. Harry froze and tried his best not to glare at him. Unluckily, Ron and Hermione were eyeing him with complete loathing. Did I say something wrong? Peter squeaked. No, not at all, James said, looking at Ron and Hermione suspiciously, although I don't think so anyway. No, he didn't, Ron said, but his tone was one of hatred. Ron, you look hungry. Maybe we should go down and eat something, Harry said quickly. Everyone stared at him, then nodded. Food. I need food, Sirius cried. Remus rolled his eyes. Padfoot, All you think about is food. Harry bit his lip to stop himself laughing. The serious he knew sometimes got excited about food. Equals 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 equals. While they walked down to the Great Hall, they came across Professor Dumbledore. "Hello, Albus. Nice to see you again. Lovely day, isn't it?" Sirius said, looking happy, while everyone else held back a laugh. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled with amusement. "Good morning, Mr. Black. Yes, indeed. It's a lovely day." He made a walk into the Great Hall, but stopped on seeing Harry, Ron, and Hermione. "Hello there. I don't believe we've met. Who are you?" "We're transfer students. Need to speak with you, Professor," Harry said, looking nervous. "Oh, indeed. Well, please follow me to my office, and we shall talk there." Dumbledore started walking off to his office with Harry, Ron, and Hermione walking behind. Equals 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 equals. On entering Dumbledore's office, Dumbledore waved his wand and made 3 chairs appear out of thin air. "Please sit." So they did. When they seated themselves comfortably, Hermione chose to speak. Professor, we think that we ought to tell you that my friends and we're from a future. We somehow got transported here. I think it was by my time turner, but..." Hermione pulled out a smashed time turner from around her neck. "I think it got broken when we fell," Hermione said cautiously. Dumbledore looked at them in surprise. Clearly, he had not been expecting this. He nodded and said, "Continue." "Well, I'm Hermione Granger, and these are my friends." Hermione motioned to Harry and Ron Weasley, and Hermione trailed off, looking to Harry. "And I'm Harry Potter." Dumbledore looked at Harry in surprise. "Harry Potter? As in James Potter's son?" Harry nodded to confirm Dumbledore's suspicions. "Really? Well, that's interesting, I must say, although I shouldn't be surprised." "Why is that interesting, Professor?" Dumbledore waved it away with his hand. "It's nothing. I just didn't realize that James Potter, one of my brightest students, would end up having a child." Harry, Ron, and Hermione looked at him confused. Dumbledore decided to continue. "He's always saying that kids would be too much to handle." "Oh." The 3 fifth years nodded in understanding. Harry grinned. "Professor Dumbledore, we've changed our last names, but quite a few people already think that James and I look like twins." Dumbledore nodded. "I must say, I did think you were James at first, but then I noticed the color of your eyes and knew straight away that you weren't him," Dumbledore said, his eyes twinkling. "May I ask who your mother is, Harry?" Harry hesitated and looked at Ron and Hermione. They both nodded and smiled. "It couldn't hurt to tell you, could it?" Harry asked. Dumbledore shook his head. "Not unless I tell them, which I very much doubt." Harry grinned, then said, "My mother is Lily Evans." Again, Dumbledore looked surprised. "Lily Evans? Really? Why is that so surprising?" Hermione asked. "Well, it's just the fact that Lily seems to not really like James at the moment. She says she finds him rather annoying, which I must say, he could be at times." Harry smiled. "So, what are your last names then?" Dumbledore asked. "Well, I'm Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, and I'm just keeping my name as it is." Professor Dumbledore nodded. "Very well. What house should you be in? I assume that all 3 of you attended Hogwarts. Am I correct?" He was answered by 3 nods. "We're all in Gryffindor," Ron said. Dumbledore nodded again. "Unfortunately, though, I will have to place the sorting hat on your heads at breakfast. Otherwise, people will be suspicious as to why you were put in Gryffindor, if you understand my meaning." Harry, Ron, and Hermione nodded slowly. Dumbledore then noticed that Harry had paled. "Whatever's the matter, Harry?" "Well, it's just in my first year at Hogwarts, the sorting hat said that I could do well in Slytherin, but but I think that's because of Voldemort's powers being transferred to me from when I was a baby. Ron flinched, but then Dumbledore suddenly looked angry. Voldemort, he questioned harshly. Well, yes, Harry. Then realizing Dumbledore's suspicions quickly spoke up. It's not what you think, Professor. None of us are working for him. Dumbledore looked as though he relaxed for a minute. Then his gaze hardened again. And how do I know that? It's true, Professor. We all hate him. He tried to kill Harry when he was a baby, and in doing so, he killed James and Lily. But when he turned on Harry, the curse backfired, and no one knows how he lived. But when this happened, Harry was left with only a scar on his forehead. Everything we're saying is all true, sir. Harry, show him your scar. Dumbledore turned to see Harry lift up his black hair to reveal a lightning-shaped scar on his forehead. Dumbledore studied it intently for a minute. Then he relaxed. I believe you, Miss Granger. I'm sorry about my suspicions earlier. I shouldn't have been really, but with Voldemort on the rise, there's no telling who's on which side. I'm always fighting for the light. There is absolutely no way that I am fighting with him. He killed my parents, Harry said, anger rising in his voice. I believe you, Harry. Now, shall we go down to the Great Hall so you could try on the Sorting Hat? No offense in any way, but I'm starting to feel a bit peckish, and I'm sure that you three must be hungry, Dumbledore said with a smile. 3 grumbling stomachs answered his question. Well, let us proceed to the Great Hall, and with that, Harry, Ron, and Hermione made their way to the Great Hall, ready to be sorted into their house. Harry, Ron, and Hermione quickly and quietly walked to the front of the Great Hall, where the Sorting Hat stood on a stool. The Great Hall went quiet as they stood in front of everyone so that they could be seen. Dumbledore stood up and smiled, his arms stretched out wide. Good morning, everyone. Last night, these 3 students transferred here, and before we do anything, we need to put them into their houses. Please do everything you can make them feel welcome, so. Miss Granger, will you please put on the Sorting Hat? Hermione quickly sidled up to the hat and put it on. After a few minutes of silence, there was a huge shout of, Gryffindor. Everyone on the Gryffindor table cheered loudly. Hermione quickly walked over and sat down. Mr. Weasel, Ron walked over to the Sorting Hat and crammed it onto his head. Almost instantly it yelled, Gryffindor. Once again, the Gryffindor table burst into applause and cheers. And last but not least, Mr. Poor Harry picked up the Sorting Hat and put it on his head. Like last time, it fell past his eyes. The Sorting Hat was whispering in his ear. Ah, young Mr. Potter, I see you accidentally went back in time with the time Turner, along with Mr. Weasley and Miss Granger. Like I said 4 years ago, you could do well in Slytherin. It's all here in your head, and Slytherin would be the best house to help you. Harry started whispering frantically, Please no, not Slytherin. Put me in Gryffindor. That's the house where I belong. The Sorting Hat heard this and sighed. All right then, if not Slytherin, it had better be Gryffindor. As the hat shouted the last word, Harry sighed with relief. He was in the house where he belonged along with his 2 best friends. Now he could try to spend more time with his dad and his 3 best friends. Heck, he could even try making friends with Lily too. He walked over to the Gryffindor table, shaking hands with James, Sirius, Remus, Peter, and even Lily. 2 girls that Harry didn't know shook his hand too. Well done, you 3. Congratulations. We have 3 new Gryffindors amongst us. All the Slytherins were glaring at them, and I hope you all will do your best to make them feel welcome. Somehow, I don't think the Slytherins will be welcoming us. Harry whispered to Ron and Hermione, and they started laughing. Now that that's over, let breakfast begin. Almost instantly, food appeared out of nowhere. Sirius and James grabbed hold of anything they could get hold of and started stuffing their faces. Harry pulled a face. How can you guys eat so much? Well, we're growing boys and we need to eat, Sirius said, gulping down some pumpkin juice and taking a huge chunk out of some toast. Hermione looked down at her toast and pushed it away from her. They put me off my food now, she moaned. Ron laughed. Hey, I just realized something. We need a new seeker and our next match is on Saturday. James exclaimed. Ron and Hermione started grinning. You need a new seeker, huh? Well, what a coincidence. You're looking right at one. Huh? Who? Questioned Sirius. Harry, of course. In our old school, he was a seeker and he didn't lose a single match. James, Sirius, Remus, and Peter looked at Harry uncertainly. Are you sure? James said, looking doubtful. I mean, no offense. Hey, how about after we finish lessons? Harry shows you what he's made of. I tell you, he's bloody brilliant. Ron exclaimed. Harry blushed. Ron, I'm not that good. It was Hermione who spoke up next. Harry, stop trying to be modest. You're good and you know it. I bet you'd make the team. Harry blushed, if possible, even redder than before. All right then, after lessons, we'll see what you're made of, James said, smiling. Cool. Hey Lily, are you going to come and watch me? James asked, turning to the redhead next to him. Lily glared at him. I will go down to watch, but only to see what Harry's like. I'm not watching you. You're just a big head, Lily said and turned around to talk to her friends. Well, I'm insulted, James said, pretending to look offended. Harry smirked. You like her, don't you? James looked at him, taken aback. How did you know? It's sort of obvious, Ron said, grinning. Don't worry. Harry was the same with Cho. I was not, and I did not fancy her. Oh yeah, so that's why you asked her to the ball in our 4th year, and you got all tongue-tied, was it? Harry stared at him. How did you know that? Ron grinned. I have my ways. Let's just say, it's good that I have a sister. Why you got Ginny to spy on me? Harry said, looking outraged. Your sister, the one who fancies me. Ron's smile faded. How'd you find that out? I have my ways, Harry said and started to grin. Hermione rolled her eyes. You too. You act like brothers. It's scary. I wish we were. I'm an only child. It looks like that's how it's going to stay. Unless my parents miraculously come back to life. Ron put on a sympathetic smile. Don't worry. You can be my temporary brother if you want. Harry smiled. Okay then, cool. Equals 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 equals. After breakfast, the Marauders, Harry, Ron, and Hermione made their way out into the Gryffindor Tower, but on their way, they saw a bunch of Slytherins surrounding something, but no one could make out what. There was one Slytherin that Harry, Ron, and Hermione made out, and that was Lucius Malfoy. It looked like he was the leader of the group. Come on, Weasley, cough up the dough. Or are you that poor? All of the Slytherins laughed. Harry and Hermione looked cautiously over at Ron, who looked furious. He stormed over to the Slytherins. Ron, no. Hermione yelled. Oi, what do you think you're doing? Ron shouted. All the Slytherins turned to look at Ron. Oh, it's Weasel, what do you want? Leave him alone, Ron yelled. He could see red hair and freckles and also glasses. It was definitely Arthur Weasley, and from what Ron could tell, he'd been beaten up pretty bad. And what if we don't? What'll you do about it then, Weasel? Ron pulled his wand out and pointed it straight at Lucius. I'm warning you. Leave him alone. Ron's voice was quivering with rage. Lucius merely smiled and turned to see Arthur standing up. He pulled out his wand and muttered something. Arthur went flying back into a wall. Ron immediately lost it. He pointed his wand at Malfoy and aimed. Expelliarmus, he cried, and with that, Malfoy went flying back with his wand landing in Ron's hand. Ron, stop it. But Ron was taking no notice. Rictus Sempra, he yelled, aiming his attack at Malfoy, who was only just recovering from the previous spell. Arthur stood up and quickly ran over to the Marauders, who were just standing there, looking shocked. Harry, who thought Ron might need some help, stood next to him and took out his wand also. Harry, don't you dare start too. We're going to lose points from Gryffindor before we even start the day. Hermione said, looking alarmed. Don't pick on people just because of how much money they've got. It just goes to show how low you Slytherins really are. Harry told them. Immediately, He knew that he'd hit a nerve because they all turned to glare at him. Harry, Ron, stop it, Hermione cried. What's going on here? Everyone turned to see a younger-looking Professor McGonagall. These Slytherins, Ron said, pointing at the group in front of them, were beating up this boy here because of how much money he had. Professor McGonagall looked at Arthur, then glanced over at Lucius Malfoy. And who attacked Mr. Malfoy? She questioned. I did, Ron said. McGonagall looked at him, taken aback. He was beating him up. I felt that someone had to do something about it, so I stepped in. McGonagall nodded. Even though you were sticking up for another student, I'm afraid that 10 points will have to be taken from Gryffindor for attacking another student, and 20 points will be taken from Slytherin in detention from Mr. Malfoy. Now will all of you please get to your classes? And with that, she walked off. Equals 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 equals. While walking to Transfiguration, Arthur Weasley thanked Ron. No problem. I used to get that all the time because our family isn't exactly the richest in the world. I hate to see it happen to anyone else, Arthur smiled. Harry and James were talking about Quidditch. Yeah, so I'm a chaser. Everyone says that I'm the best that the school's ever seen. Somehow I can believe that. And James grinned. Something tells me that you and I are going to get along just fine, he said and ruffled Harry's hair. Harry grinned. If what your mate says is true, that you've never lost a match as Seeker and I'm the best chaser that's ever played at Hogwarts, then the Quidditch Cup is in the bag. James smiled. Well, there's one little detail that he forgot, Harry said, smiling knowingly. Really, what's that? I made the Quidditch team in my first year in school. James' jaw dropped. You're kidding, he said, looking astonished. No. James turned around to Sirius, Remus, Peter, Arthur, and Lily. Did you guys hear that? Harry made the Quidditch team in his first year at his school. Everyone's jaw dropped when they heard this information. You're joking, right, Harry? Sirius exclaimed. Harry shook his head. It's all true. Hermione piped up. Harry smiled at his best female friend. Yeah, I tell you, I've never seen such flying. Ron said, sounding happy. Ron, will you stop it? Harry said, feeling himself go hot in the face. Harry, you shouldn't be embarrassed about it, Hermione told him. I'm not. Just quit going on about it, please. While in Transfiguration, Harry seated himself next to James and Remus. Ron seated himself next to Arthur and Hermione. Hermione sat next to Peter and Ron. Today, we will be learning how to transform mice into goblets, McGonagall told them. Harry, Ron, and Hermione looked at each other in amazement. This was exactly the same thing that she taught them in their first week. Now, tap on it in 1, 2, 3, then say Ferroverto, McGonagall said, transforming her mouse into a perfect goblet. Now get into pairs and begin. Sirius paired with Harry. James paired with Remus. Peter paired with Lily. Arthur paired with Molly, and Hermione paired with Ron. Ron found himself struggling and also found himself under pressure by Hermione's stare. Ferroverto, he cried, but to no avail, the mouse remained the same. Hermione sighed and gave him an exasperated look. Ron, you're acting like you did when we were once in Charms. I can't get this bloody thing to work, he said through gritted teeth, while flicking his wand at the mouse. Hermione grabbed hold of his arm and stopped him. If I have to teach you, then so be it. First off, you're saying it wrong. It's Ferroverto, not Ferroverto. Everyone turned to look at Hermione, who was explaining to Ron. You do it then if you're so clever. Go on. Ron, I don't think that a good idea to encourage her. Remember in Charms when Dash. He knows Harry, Hermione said. She was silent for a moment before tapping the mouse 3 times and saying Ferroverto. Almost instantly, the mouse turned into a perfect goblet. Everyone turned to stare at her perfect goblet. Congratulations, Miss Granger. 10 points to Gryffindor. McGonagall said, sounding happy. Ron pulled a face and started to sulk. Well, Ron, you did encourage her and dash. Shut up, Harry. Ron snapped. Harry did and didn't talk to him for the rest of the lessons, knowing that Ron was in such a foul mood. Ron only started talking to him when they were making their way to the Quidditch pitch. Harry walked onto the Quidditch pitch holding a Nimbus 1000. Ron, Hermione, and Lily were sitting in the stands looking happy. So, exactly, where did you get this broom? Harry asked James, who simply smiled. Got it out of the broom cupboard. It was the only one left. So, in other words, you stole it, Harry said, feeling himself start to grin. James gave off an offended look. You think that I, James Potter, would steal something? I merely borrowed it. James said. Harry smirked. You're right. Hello. We're here to see what Harry's like at Quidditch, not to watch you two have a discussion over whether James stole the broom. Sirius yelled from the stands. James sighed and rolled his eyes. Okay, so you said that you were a seeker, right? James questioned. Harry nodded. Right, well, what I'm going to do is let the snitch out, and we're both going to try and catch it, got that? Harry nodded once again. James knelt down to a trunk and unlocked the Hogwarts crest. Inside it was a golden ball that, as soon as James let go of it, started to fly off. Let's mount our brooms and fly around first, so we get the feel of flying. I haven't been flying for a whole month, so I'm probably going to be a little rusty, James told him. Harry grimaced. I haven't played Quidditch in 4 months, so think yourself lucky. Together, James and Harry mounted their brooms and flew up into the air. Let's have a race. The fastest one to fly around the Quidditch pitch and stop by the stand where Padfoot and that Lotter wins, James yelled to him. Got it, Harry yelled back. Sirius was standing up and grinning. On your marks, get set, go. And with the wave of his hand, James and Harry flew off. It was James in the lead to begin with, but halfway through, Harry made a comeback, but then it came to be neck, and finally. Ooh, I think that James just won, Ron said, looking disappointed. James was looking back at Harry, who smiled. That was a good race, James smiled and nodded. You were a good opponent. No one's ever come close to beating me before. Suddenly, Harry spotted a glint of gold. The snitch. How could he dive down and get it? While James was talking to him. Slowly, but surely, Harry made his way near the snitch. Then as soon as James noticed what Harry was doing, they both raced down after the snitch. Come on, Harry! Ron, Hermione, and Lily cried in unison. Go on, James! Sirius, Remus, and Peter shouted. Before anyone knew what was happening, Harry had pulled up, while James was still sailing downwards. James quickly managed to right himself, but not before scraping his knee badly on the ground. He flew back up and looked around. Harry's eyes darted everywhere. The snitch had just disappeared. James was right on his tail. He couldn't let him get it. I can't see it anywhere. James' voice cried out in frustration. Harry looked over to him and smiled weakly. His father was just as good a Quidditch player as everyone had said. Another glint of gold caught Harry's attention. The snitch again. He raced down after it, but not before James had realized what was going on. Harry flew faster and faster, and at the last minute, put on a burst of speed, causing him to fly past the snitch. He turned around and did a backflip as he caught it. He flew back up into the air, grinning as he held the snitch in his hand. Ron, Hermione, and Lily burst into applause, while Sirius, Remus, and Peter looked at him, dumbstruck. James flew up to him and shook his hand. That was bloody amazing. I've got to admit, I've never seen such flying. James grinned. How would you like to join the Gryffindor Quidditch team? Harry's heart lifted and trying his best not to sound too excited over the prospect of playing on the same team as his father, but failing miserably said, Yeah, I'd love to. James nodded, and he gave a great whoop of joy. We found ourselves a new seeker, guys. Now all I've got to do is tell McGonagall. Are you the Quidditch team captain? Harry questioned. James turned to him and nodded. Harry and James slowly flew down to the ground, while Sirius, Peter, Remus, Lily, Ron, and Hermione ran over to them. James quickly put the snitch back into the trunk, while everyone else was congratulating Harry. That was bloody brilliant, Sirius cried. Absolutely wicked, Peter agreed. You're just as good as James, Remus exclaimed. Harry beamed at this comment. Harry, you've got talent, Lily said happily. James clapped Harry on the back. What say? We all go the 3 broomsticks and celebrate. We've needed a decent seeker for ages, and we've finally found one. What do you say? James questioned everyone. Everyone nodded in agreement. Mr. Potter, someone called over the Quidditch pitch. James looked over to see a very stern-looking Professor McGonagall. Harry, come with me. We should tell her the good news. Harry nodded and followed James. Professor McGonagall, we found ourselves a new seeker, James exclaimed happily. McGonagall looked at him with a raised eyebrow. Harry Potter, he's an amazing seeker. I've just played against him. I think he should join the Gryffindor Quidditch team. With your permission, of course, James added. McGonagall looked at Harry uncertainly. Why do people keep looking at me like that? Harry said, sounding annoyed. Like what? McGonagall asked. Like they don't believe that it's possible for me to be good at Quidditch. McGonagall looked at him apologetically. Also, Professor, Harry started playing Quidditch in his first year at his school, James exclaimed. McGonagall looked at Harry with wide eyes. Is this true? She questioned. Harry sighed. Yes, it's true, Professor. McGonagall smiled. All right, I will see to your first Quidditch practice, 7 tonight, I assume? She questioned James. James nodded to confirm. Very well, see you tonight at 7. And with that, McGonagall walked off. James grinned at Harry and ruffled his hair. The Quidditch Cup is in the bag, he yelled happily. Equals 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 equals. At 7 that night, the Gryffindor Quidditch team huddled around James in the changing rooms. They were all eager to know who the new seeker was. He decided to leave it a surprise for them. He stood up and smiled. Everyone, meet our new seeker, Harry Potter. Everyone turned to see Harry stand up and wave slightly. They all smiled at him as he sat down. So, I take it that you're good then? Rosie Thompson said. She was a beater. Well, Harry stuttered. Harry, why are you so embarrassed about people knowing how good you are at Quidditch? James questioned him. Harry blushed and looked down at the ground. He didn't want to tell anyone, but the fact that he was on the Quidditch team with his dad made him helpless with words. I don't know, he said, looking up again. I guess I just don't want to boast. James raised an eyebrow. Well, you can boast as much as you like when we beat Slytherin on Saturday. Harry smiled as the rest of the team cheered. Well, now that you know who our seeker is, let's go out and practice, James said, and with that, they all hurried onto the Quidditch pitch. Equals 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 equals. Harry, you were brilliant, Lily said, beaming. Harry blushed. After practicing for 2 hours, he'd caught the snitch over 20 times. Professor McGonagall walked over to him, looking happier than Harry had ever seen her. Mr. Potter, I've never seen such flying. It looks like that the Quidditch Cup will be ours this year, McGonagall said happily. Yeah, the Slytherins are going down, Sirius cried, and the rest of the Quidditch team cheered in agreement. Right, now I want all of you in bed. Tomorrow's a school day, McGonagall said, half-heartedly. Professor, do you think that Harry could go down to Hogwarts tomorrow after school and get himself a decent broom? James asked. McGonagall smiled yet again. I don't think that will be necessary, Mr. Potter, she said. I will order him a broom. James and Harry grinned and gave each other a high five. This is going to be the best year ever, Ron said, sounding happy. Hermione and Harry nodded in agreement. Professor McGonagall hurried into Dumbledore's office. Her hat was lopsided, and she was out of breath. Dumbledore looked up and surveyed her with concern. "Minerva, whatever's the matter?" Dumbledore questioned. "It's Potter, Weasley and Granger, sir," she said between gasps for breath. "What's happened?" Dumbledore asked, looking worried. "Well, I've just found this on the floor." McGonagall held up broken glass. "I believe that this is from Miss Granger's time turner. Also, there was sand on the floor, too." Dumbledore nodded. "But how do you know that it's Mr. Potter, Mr. Weasley, and Miss Granger that have gone somewhere in time?" he asked. "They haven't attended any of their classes for the whole day," McGonagall exclaimed. Dumbledore suddenly looked grave. "Oh dear, this could be a problem. How far back in time do you think they could have gone, Minerva?" But before McGonagall could answer, a black bird swooped into Dumbledore's office and dropped an envelope on his desk. Dumbledore stared at it for a few seconds, then opened it. He read through it once, and his gaze became one of concern and anger. "What is it, Albus?" McGonagall asked, looking worried. "It's Voldemort." McGonagall flinched at the sound of the name. "He's found a way to go back in time, and he's going to try and kill Harry and James," Dumbledore said, sounding worried at the last sentence. What?" McGonagall asked, looking disbelieving. "Minerva, I think I understand what's going on. Harry, Ron, and Hermione somehow accidentally got transported back to the past, where James and Lily still attend Hogwarts. Voldemort's found out and decided that this is his big chance. He can kill Harry and James without much of a fight. James wasn't as strong in school as he was when he left," Dumbledore explained. McGonagall's eyes widened. But we need someone to protect them then. Someone from our present time should go back and protect them." Dumbledore nodded and smiled. "And I know just the people. The year 1959, in my first chapter 1, put 1979, but I meant 1959. Sorry for any inconveniences." "Harry, what's wrong?" Remus asked, looking worried. Harry's scar had started to hurt, and he was rubbing it. "What's with this bloody thing?" he cried out in frustration. "How did you get that scar, Harry?" Peter asked, looking curious. "A dark wizard attacked me, and somehow I survived. It happened when I was a baby, so I don't really remember it," Harry replied. The Marauders and Lily looked at him in shock. "A dark wizard?" Lily said, looking horrified. "Yeah, been trying to kill me. The bastard killed my parents," Harry said, looking angry. Ron and Hermione looked at him apprehensively. "Harry, are you Al Dash?" "No, I'm not all right. This scar is really starting to annoy me, and I don't want your sympathies. Okay?" And with that, he stormed off out of the Great Hall. "Sheesh, sorry for caring," Hermione muttered. "You know what he's like. He didn't mean it," Ron reassured her, then whispered in a worried tone to her, "You don't think you know who's nearby, do you?" Hermione hesitated for a minute, then shrugged her shoulders. "I wouldn't know, but Voldemort's clever enough. It wouldn't surprise me." Equals 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 equals. While sitting in divination, Harry looked tiredly out of the window. Professor Trelawney was still as boring as ever. The Marauders, Lily, Ron, and even Hermione took this lesson. He didn't see how they managed to stay awake. His eyes slowly began to droop as he fell into a dream. Harry's dream. "Wormtail, is it done yet?" A cold voice asked from the chair. "Almost, Master. As soon as this is finished. Any Death Eater who wishes to come to the past can do so," Peter's high-pitched voice rang out. "Excellent. We attack the school tomorrow, when that pathetic mudblood, loving fool, Dumbledore, least expects it," Voldemort said and let out a bone-chilling laugh. Wormtail shivered slightly as little beads of sweat fell down his face. "But what about the Potters, sir?" Wormtail questioned. "What about them? They will die at my mercy. Surely, you're not worried about seeing them again, Wormtail. They are your enemies. Voldemort said, sternly. Why, yes, Master, Wormtail squeaked. Suddenly, a crash of glass filled the air and Wormtail screamed. Wormtail, you fool! You broke the most important ingredient. For that, I shall have to teach you not to do it again. A lesson in pain might work. And no, Master, please I beg of you. Crucio. End of Harry's dream. Harry was on the floor, screaming in pain, while clutching his scar. Ron and Hermione were knelt down next to him. When the pain subsided, Harry sat up, beads of sweat pouring down his face. My dear boy, are you all right? Professor Trelawney questioned, looking concerned. It was then that Harry noticed that he was shaking. He looked around and noticed that everybody's face had paled. His eyes landed on Peter, and he tried everything he could not to glare at the murderous traitor. Harry looked up at Trelawney and shook his head. May I please go to the hospital wing? He asked. Trelawney nodded. Mr. Weasley and Miss Granger, would you be so kind as to take him to the hospital wing? Ron and Hermione nodded and grabbed hold of Harry under each arm and pulled him up to his feet. They then started to proceed to the door. Oh, Mr. Poor. Harry turned around and faced Trelawney. Her eyes were full of concern. What did you see? She questioned. Harry shook his head. I can't remember, Professor. Trelawney frowned, while Harry, Ron, and Hermione left the divination classroom. It was only when they were halfway to the hospital wing when Ron spoke up. Harry, what did you see? Voldemort's here. And this time, him and Wormtail, they're making some sort of potion to make any Death Eater come back to the past so that they can kill me and my dad. Hermione gasped and put a hand to her mouth. Harry, you have to tell Dumbledore. Harry shook his head. I can't. He'll get suspicious as to how I know. There's a whole classroom full of witnesses. They know that it was because of your scar that you were on the floor in pain. I bet they believe you if you told them the truth. By the way, they're attacking tomorrow, Harry told them. Ron and Hermione stopped walking and stared at Harry. Then we have no choice but to tell Dumbledore. He has to know Harry. Ron yelled. Harry hung his head. All right then, let's go. As they ran off to Dumbledore's office, they stopped outside the gargoyle statue. Great, what was the password again? Harry asked. It was chocolate frogs, Hermione said. Almost immediately, the gargoyle leapt aside and Harry, Ron, and Hermione ran up the stairs to Dumbledore's office. They burst into his office. Dumbledore looked up and smiled, but then his gaze turned to Sirius on seeing the looks on their faces. Professor, there's something you should know, Harry gasped, clutching his waist where he had a stitch. What is it? Dumbledore asked, looking concerned. It's Voldemort. The Voldemort from our time has come back to this time. He's going to try to kill me and my dad, and they're attacking tomorrow. I just had a vision concerning my scar. Whenever my scar hurts, it means he's near. Harry said, sounding terrified. Dumbledore nodded. He stood up, but not before Harry started screaming again. He cried, falling to the floor and clutching his scar again. Harry! Harry! Hermione shouted. Miss Granger, Mr. Weasley, step aside, Dumbledore ordered. Ron and Hermione did as they were told. He's really angry. Harry cried out in pain. What's happened, Harry? Dumbledore asked quietly. Harry managed to sit up, half blinded by the pain. The pain slowly subsided. It's never been this bad before, Harry said, while breathing heavily. Wormtail keeps accidentally dropping the important ingredient for the potion, he whispered. Dumbledore nodded to show he had heard, but then a question came to mind. Who's Wormtail? He asked. Harry looked apprehensively at Dumbledore. I can't tell you, sir. It'll mess up the future, Dumbledore nodded in understanding. Very well. I guess I'll find out tomorrow. Harry wiped tears from his eyes, while Hermione was shaking violently and Ron looked like he was going to be sick. Professor, what should we do for the time being? Voldemort's only after James and me, Dumbledore nodded again. I will put a protection charm on you, he told them. By any chance, did you hear Voldemort say when he was going to attack? Harry thought for a few moments, then shook his head. No, sir, I'm sorry, I didn't. All right then, please go back to your common room. You may have the rest of the day off if you wish. We don't want you collapsing in classes again, do we? Dumbledore said, looking amused. Harry smiled weakly and thanked Dumbledore. I'll alert the teachers tonight. Thank you, Professor. And with that, Harry, Ron, and Hermione made their way back to Gryffindor common room. The next morning, Harry awoke to find the boys' dormitories deserted. He walked downstairs and into the Gryffindor common room. Ron and Hermione were in deep conversation with the Marauders and Lily. When Harry entered the common room, Ron smiled and waved him over. Hey guys, what's going on? Harry asked. Dumbledore's ordered us to stay in our common rooms today. We're only allowed out for breakfast and dinner, James told him. Harry looked at him in surprise. Really? Everyone else nodded. Harry looked over to see Lily with tears streaming down her face. Is it true that you had a vision of the Dark Lord? Is that why you were lying on the floor in pain in divination yesterday? She questioned him. Harry looked around to see everyone's eyes on him. Slowly, but surely, he nodded and said yes. The Marauders and Lily gasped. Harry looked at them apprehensively. Why, you don't think I dash? No, we don't, Sirius said almost immediately. Dumbledore called me into his office earlier this morning and told me that he had to put a protection charm on me. Although I've no idea why. He wouldn't tell me, James said, looking curious. Remus looked at him questioningly. When was this? You've been with us since you woke up, he said. James shifted around guiltily. It was before any of you guys were awake. I crept back in and got in bed before you guys woke up. Oh. Equals 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 equals. While everyone was in the Great Hall eating breakfast, Professor McGonagall hurried over to Dumbledore and whispered something to him. He nodded, and his expression immediately turned stern. He stood up, and everyone went quiet. Everyone, Lord Voldemort and some of his Death Eaters, are heading this way. From reliable sources, they're in the Forbidden Forest, and coming closer, there was immediate panic. Everyone started screaming, and even some started crying. Dumbledore silenced them all again. Prefects, lead your houses back to the common rooms, and make sure that no one leaves the common rooms. Harry Potter and James Potter, come with me. While everyone was exiting the Great Hall, Voldemort and his Death Eaters arrived. Voldemort kicked the double doors open and the Death Eaters started to run amok. There was absolute chaos. Students were screaming and teachers were attempting to fight. But everyone silenced when Voldemort blasted a spell from his wand. Everyone turned to look at him with sheer terror on their faces. Where is Harry Potter? He questioned everyone. Immediately, whispers broke out. Harry turned to look at Ron and Hermione and looked at them sadly, then made to walk forward. Harry, don't! Hermione cried. She had tears streaming down her face, and she grabbed hold of his arm. Harry pried out of her grip and walked forward. Here I am, Harry yelled. Everyone cleared their way to look at the boy. Ah, chérie? You. The Marauders were looking at him in disbelief, along with Lily. I'm sorry, James, but I lied. I lied to all of you. Voldemort narrowed his eyes and smirked. How very touching. Now, where is James Potter? He hissed. James stepped forward and looked at Voldemort with certain dislike. Voldemort's smirk grew wider. Now, who should I kill first? The father or the son? He asked, looking around. What? James asked, looking thoroughly confused. He looked to Sirius, Remus, Peter, and Lily, but they just looked equally confused. You mean to tell me that the famous Harry Potter hasn't revealed who he really is? Voldemort said with a glint of amusement in his eye. Who is he? James asked, looking at Harry curiously, along with the rest of the school. Well, James, let's just say, if you hadn't have tried to stop me from killing dear Harry here, you would still be alive, along with your lovely mudblood wife, Voldemort hissed. James had paled considerably. Why you mean that? Harry is dash. Very good, Potter, very good now. if you'll excuse me, Accio." Voldemort pointed at Harry, and he flew into Voldemort's arms. Harry struggled, but to no avail. Voldemort was too strong. Voldemort held his wand to Harry's throat. "Now, who would like to see a killing?" Voldemort asked. Only the Death Eaters cheered, but suddenly there was a loud shout of, "No, leave him alone." Everyone turned to see who it was. Four adults came rushing through the crowd and finally stopped at the front. Harry's eyes widened as he recognized who they were. "Sirius!" Harry yelled. The younger Sirius looked at the scene in front of him with wide eyes. "Let him go," Sirius cried, looking angrier than Harry had ever seen him. "No." Voldemort smirked, and he began to mutter something with his wand still at Harry's throat. But he was stopped. "Expelliarmus!" It was Snape. Voldemort's wand flew out of his hand and onto the ground. "Ah, Severus Snape, the traitor!" Voldemort hissed angrily. The younger Snape looked like he was about to faint at what he was hearing. "Voldemort, unhand Harry!" Lupin shouted. Voldemort merely glared at him. "Lupin, you think you can order me around?" he spat. The younger Remus' jaw dropped open. Suddenly, there was a loud hissing noise coming from Voldemort's mouth, and everyone started screaming as a huge snake came slithering into view. Harry took this opportunity and bit Voldemort's hand. Voldemort cried out in pain and let go of Harry. "Foolish boy, you will pay," Voldemort shouted angrily. Harry glared at him. He wasn't going to let Voldemort get a hold of either him or James, not as long as he was alive. "Harry, get behind me," Sirius commanded. Harry turned to look at him. "But Dash." "Do it," he shouted. There was something that sounded so commanding in his voice, something that Harry had never heard before, that he obeyed immediately, not wanting to anger Sirius more. "Ah, isn't that cute? My cousin's trying to protect Potter." A woman stepped in, looking gleeful. It was Bellatrix. "As far as I'm concerned, you and I are not related." Sirius spat. "Of course, although I expect you to be a bit on edge, Sirius. I mean, you must be still running from the Dementors, am I correct?" Sirius' face paled considerably. Bellatrix smirked. "I thought so. Spending 12 years in Azkaban, being on the run for 2 years, although most of us lot knew that you were innocent. But of course I must admit, what Pettigrew did was sheer brilliance, framing you and making everyone think that you betrayed the Potters, when it was Pettigrew all along," Bellatrix said, and started laughing. Sirius' face darkened, and he looked angrily at Bellatrix. "Shut up, you old hag." Bellatrix stopped laughing, and she narrowed her eyes. "Never call me that. Crucio," she whispered. Sirius was immediately hit with pain. He screamed, while everyone looked at him in horror. "Professor Lupin, what are you doing?" Hermione cried. Lupin strode forward, wand poised and looking angrily at Bellatrix. He muttered something, and she went flying to the back of the wall. Voldemort seized his chance and started talking in parcel tongue to Nagini. "Kill the boys," Voldemort hissed. Nagini nodded and made her way towards James first. Harry flung himself in front of him and started talking back to Nagini. "Don't do it. He's getting you to do his dirty work. Is that what you want? To just do his dirty work?" Harry questioned the snake. The snake seemed to not know how to reply. Everyone stared at the scene before them. Voldemort and Harry talking to the snake in a different language. "Attack him. Don't listen to him," Voldemort hissed angrily. Nagini looked at her former master and nodded. She made her way to bite Harry, but not before Arthur Weasley stepped in. "Stupefy," he yelled. Nagini stopped in her tracks and froze. She was paralyzed. "Nice one, Arthur," Lupin said and smiled. Arthur smiled back. "Thanks." "Dad, look out," Ron's voice shouted, sounding panicky. Arthur turned around, but only to be hit by the Cruciatus curse. It was Lucius Malfoy. "Avada Kedavra!" A voice yelled out. It was aimed right at James, but he was knocked out of the way by Harry. Harry missed the killing curse by inches. Everyone gasped. Immediately, pandemonium broke out. A huge fight between the Death Eaters and Voldemort against Sirius, Remus, Severus, Arthur, Harry, and James broke out. Sirius and Lupin were fighting 5 Death Eaters at once. Arthur was fighting Lucius Malfoy. Severus was trying to take on 2 Death Eaters at once, while Harry and James were trying their best to fight Voldemort. Everyone else was screaming and shouting, while hexes and unforgivable curses were being sent all over the place. "Hermione, look out!" Lupin cried, quickly pushing Hermione out of the way and just missing the killing curse. Hermione slowly managed to steady her breathing back to normal. It soon came down to just Harry and Voldemort. Most of the Death Eaters had been beaten, and Arthur was looking particularly proud of himself at actually beating up Malfoy. "Potter, this one's just between you and me," Voldemort whispered dangerously. "No," Sirius yelled, but Lupin held him back. "Harry knows what he's doing," he whispered. James was badly injured as he was sitting with the other Marauders and Lily. Voldemort and Harry were circling each other until Voldemort made the first move. "Avada Kedavra!" he shouted. Harry quickly dodged it and shouted, "Expelliarmus!" Everyone watched in fear as Harry and Voldemort dueled, especially James and Sirius, the older one. "Crucio!" Voldemort bellowed. Like what had happened in the previous year, their wands seemed to have connected once again. Their spells both turned gold, and they began to rise off the floor. Everyone watched in awe at what was happening. Even Sirius, Lupin, and Severus were gobsmacked. One by one, different people appeared until it came to Harry's parents. "Son, I believe in you, your mother, and I will hold them off long enough for you to get away," James told his son. Harry nodded, then disconnected the spells. While Harry landed on the floor, he made to run, but he was held back by a firm hand on his shoulder. Harry looked up and his jaw dropped. It was Dumbledore from his time. "Harry, I don't think you need to run anymore," Dumbledore said quietly, his eyes never leaving Voldemort. Dumbledore strode forward, took out his wand, and muttered something. As soon as this was done, all the Death Eaters ran off, while Voldemort glared at Dumbledore. "We'll be back in soon. Both the Potters will die at my mercy." Voldemort yelled, and with that, he stormed off. Everyone was silent as what they had seen sunk in. Then a boy spoke up. "That was amazing." And with that, everyone started cheering. Harry couldn't help but smile. He had just helped save Hogwarts. James walked over to him and put a hand on his shoulder. "That was pretty brave of you, Harry," he said, smiling. Harry felt his cheeks go hot, but nodded. He suddenly realized that he had tears in his eyes. James pulled him into a hug, and everyone went ah. When James let go of him, Harry ran over to Sirius and hugged him too. Then he found himself crying, and he broke down, sobbing. Arthur, Lupin, Ron, and Hermione all had tears in their eyes as they watched the scene before them. Sirius was patting him on the back and trying to comfort him, but Harry's sobs seemed to get louder. Sirius couldn't take much more of it and broke down in tears too, and Snape found himself chuckling. "Look at you all. You're all crying." Dumbledore gave Snape a stern look before turning back to Lupin, Sirius, Harry, Ron, Hermione, Arthur, and Snape. "We will be traveling back to our time shortly, but first, if I am correct, there is supposed to be a Quidditch match between Gryffindor and Slytherin in an hour." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. "If I am correct, Harry's playing in it?" Harry looked up with a tear-stained face and nodded. "Well, then you'd better get ready." Dumbledore told him, "Don't worry, Voldemort and that lot probably won't be anywhere near here in an hour." Harry smiled and walked over to James, and together, they both walked off to the changing rooms. While the Gryffindor Quidditch team got dressed into their Quidditch robes, everyone was silent. Harry guessed that they were all still shocked over his identity as James' son. Harry walked over to where James was and picked up his broom. It was then that James spoke up. "So, you my son?" he questioned. Harry looked at him and nodded. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you, but I didn't want to mess up the past," Harry told him. James nodded and smiled. "I always wondered why you looked so much like me." "Now, I know," James said and grinned. "With 2 Potters on the same Quidditch team, there's no doubt about it. We're going to win that cup." Harry couldn't help himself and started to grin. Suddenly, There was a whistle outside, and James went quiet. "That's our cue. Here we go, people. This is it. If we win this match, we've won the Quidditch Cup. We can do this." Everyone cheered to James' encouragement. "Let's go out there and kick the Slytherins' butts." Everyone mounted their brooms and took off into the air, the Slytherins doing the same. There were loud cheers from all around, mostly cheers for Gryffindor, mind you. Madam Hooch walked onto the field and looked at them all. "Now, I know that there's no point in saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I want a nice, clean game from all of you," she told them all sternly. She knelt down and unbuckled the bludgers and let loose the golden snitch. She picked up the quaffle and threw it up into the air. Paul Jordan was commentating. And the game begins. James Potter with the quaffle and, ooh, that's gotta hurt, hit in the arm by a bludger by Crabbe. Ouch. Potter drops the quaffle and now is in possession of Flint. While this was happening, Harry was looking everywhere for the snitch, along with listening to the commentary. He had to win this game, not just for James, but to prove to everyone that he was as good a player as his dad. Harry's head narrowly missed a bludger that was heading in his direction. He turned to see who had done it and came face to face with Malfoy. It was typical that he was the Slytherin seeker. "All right there, Potter? Try to make Daddy proud. Are we?" he questioned and started laughing. Harry's blood started to boil. Lucius was just as bad as his older self. With a determined look on his face, Harry raced straight towards him. The whole crowd went quiet as Harry raced towards Malfoy and pushed him roughly so that he nearly fell off his broom. "Whoa, watch it, Potter. Unless you want something bad to happen to dear old Dad over there," he said, jabbing his thumb over to where James was holding the quaffle and throwing it through one of the hoops. Harry's eyes were ablaze. "Tell you what, I'll make you a deal. Let's Slytherin win this game, and your dad won't get hurt, unless you're totally heartless and don't care about what happens to him," Lucius said, grinning now. Harry's shoulders started to shake from anger. Lucius was threatening him, but what could he do? Let Slytherin win and make his father and the rest of Gryffindor unhappy, including Sirius, Lupin, Arthur, and Dumbledore? Or should he go for the snitch and let his father get really badly hurt? He could warn everyone when he landed on the ground about what Lucius was going to do, but no one would hear him. They'd be too busy cheering. While mulling this over, there was a sudden gasp. Lucius was diving down at something, and Harry realized that he must have been after the snitch, but Harry couldn't see a glint of gold anywhere near him. He was probably doing the wrong sea feint. And indeed he was, because when he turned around to see if Harry was there, he gave a look of disappointment before flying back up again. "Harry! Harry!" a voice cried from the Gryffindor stands. Harry looked to see who it was and noticed that it was Sirius, the older one. "Don't listen to Malfoy. We heard what he said to you. Get the snitch. We won't let anything happen to James," he shouted. Harry nodded and smiled happily, then went off in search of the snitch. And Spinette has the quaffle. Nice dodge around Flint there. Passes to Potter. He shoots. He scores. The crowd let out a wild cheer. It was now 40-0 to Gryffindor. Harry was still scanning the area, trying to find the snitch. Harry smiled to himself. He was going to trick Malfoy, do the wrong sea feint, then try and find the snitch while he was out of the way. Suddenly, Harry went down into an incredibly fast dive. Everyone gasped and turned to look. Even the Quidditch teams had stopped to stare at what was happening. Lucius, sensing that Harry had spotted the snitch, raced after him. "It looks like Potter's spotted the snitch," Jordan commented to the still crowd. All too quickly, Harry pulled up out of his dive, while Lucius carried on sailing downwards and hit the ground, making him go unconscious. There was immediate uproar from the Slytherins and yells of, "He can't do that." Harry grinned and took off in the opposite direction. This time, he'd spotted the snitch and was gaining closer. "Go on, Harry. You can do it," came the cries from the Gryffindor team and Hermione, Ron, Arthur, Sirius, and Lupin. Harry flew downwards, putting on a burst of speed, then pulling up inches from the ground. He flew up to where James was clutching the golden snitch. The crowd was deafening as everyone realized that Gryffindor had won. James got his son in a headlock and ruffled his hair. Harry grinned as they shared a manly hug. Sirius, Lupin, Arthur, Ron, and Hermione ran over to Harry as he landed on the ground. Harry was lifted up onto Sirius' shoulders as the rest of the Gryffindor crowd came pouring onto the pitch. The younger Sirius and Remus were going crazy. They were cheering madly, and they ran over to James and gave him manly hugs. James was grinning, just like Harry. Dumbledore walked over to Harry, smiling. "Congratulations, Harry. And you too, James. You both did amazingly well." James and Harry grinned and winked at each other. Lily came running over to James and kissed him on the cheek. She had tears running down her cheeks because she was so happy. Sirius put Harry down, while Lily engulfed him in a hug. Harry blushed at being hugged by his mother-to-be. Ron and Hermione were hugging each other, and Harry couldn't help but laugh. When the Gryffindor Quidditch team was presented with the cup, James asked Harry for him to take it. Harry shook his head. "Why don't we both take it? It's for Gryffindor anyway, and everyone can have a picture of both of the Potters." James grinned at him and nodded. "Deal." Harry grabbed hold of one side, while James grabbed hold of the other, and together, they lifted the cup into the air to tumultuous applause. Harry couldn't stop himself from grinning. He knew that this was the best day of his life. Equals 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 equals. Unfortunately, Dumbledore had to spoil it. He silenced everyone. "I'm sorry, but as happy as I'm sure you all are, Harry, we need to leave," Dumbledore said, looking apologetic. But I'm not ready. I don't want to go," Harry exclaimed. "Harry, you have no other choice. We need to leave for our time in 5 minutes." Harry looked down at the ground. He wasn't ready to leave his parents, yet he had to. He looked to James, who also looked upset. "Okay, but can I just say goodbye to my parents?" Harry asked quietly. Dumbledore nodded. "You may." Harry turned to James and smiled weakly. "I guess this goodbye. I'm probably never going to see you again." James' eyes started to water. "I'm going to miss you," he said, and hugged his future son. "Let me just say this, though. You may have never heard it come from my mouth before, but I just want to say how proud I am of you." Harry's vision blurred as he realized that he was crying. He nodded and wiped away his tears with his sleeve. They gave each other one last hug before Harry walked over to Lily. Lily's eyes widened. "Mom, I'm going to miss you too," he said, and hugged her. Lily was obviously too shocked to respond. She didn't realize that she was Harry's mother. Eventually, she returned the hug and smiled. When they pulled away, Harry noticed that now Lily was crying. "I just want you to know that I'm proud of you too." Harry couldn't help himself anymore, and he started to laugh. Yet he was crying at the same time. "This just doesn't seem real," Harry said, turning to look at his godfather, who had tears in his eyes. Sirius held out a hand. "Come on, Harry. Best be going." Harry nodded, and slowly, they all started to walk up to the castle. Most of the crowd had tears in their eyes at what they had seen. Equals 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 equals. Dumbledore, Lupin, Sirius, Arthur, Snape, Harry, Ron, and Hermione entered a spare classroom. Dumbledore turned back to look at them. "We will be traveling back to our time in exactly 1 minute. When this happens, everyone here will forget that we even came here," he told them. Harry nodded and wiped his eyes. "Everyone in this room will be transported back into my office. It's a bit like flu powder. You will come out of my fire." Everyone nodded. "Hermione, quick, shut the door. We've only got 10 seconds left. We can't let anyone see us being transported back. It could mess up time," Lupin told her. Hermione quickly ran to the door and shut it, then walked back over to Ron and Harry. 3, 2, 1, 0-inch, Dumbledore muttered. Immediately, it was like using flu powder. Everything around them went swirling around in circles, and Harry felt himself being thrown out of the fireplace. After him came Ron, then Sirius, then Lupin, then Hermione, then Dumbledore, Snape, and last but not least, Arthur. What no one had expected was for 6 others to come flying out of the fireplace. Everyone turned to see Lily, James, Sirius, Remus, Peter, and Arthur flying out. Lily coughed and stood up. "This is the last time I ever listened to you, James Potter," she said sternly, while the older adults and Harry, Ron, and Hermione looked at them in shock and horror. Dumbledore was the first to speak up. "Why did you follow us back here?" he questioned in a harsh voice. Sirius, Remus, Lily, Arthur, and Peter all pointed at James while Peter spoke. "It was all James' idea. He wanted to see what it was like in the future," he said in a high-pitched squeak. James' eyes widened as everyone turned to stare at him. He looked at Sirius and pointed at him. "Don't put all the blame on me." Sirius wanted to come as well. "It was mostly his idea." Sirius' jaw dropped. "Prongs, quit trying to get me in trouble. I didn't have anything to do with this," Sirius said, looking shocked. Lily sighed and crossed her arms. "We all wanted to come. Let's just leave it at that." Dumbledore smiled at her. Then his gaze hardened. "Whether you wanted to come or not, you shouldn't have. You could cause quite a few problems in the future." The fifth year's gazes looked ashamedly to the ground. "We're sorry, Professor. We just really wanted to see what the future was like," Peter mumbled under his breath. The older Sirius let out a snort. "There's nothing much that you would be interested in, Wormtail, unless you've already turned traitor against us," Sirius said harshly. Peter flinched and looked at the older Sirius with wide eyes. "What are you talking about?" Peter squeaked. "Sirius, do not tell him anymore," Dumbledore said sharply. Sirius shrugged, but still glared at Peter. Harry looked apprehensively at him. He was betting that Sirius wanted to kill him right there and then. Remus shifted uncomfortably under the gaze of everyone in the room. He eventually spoke up after a long, uncomfortable silence. Just wondering, what are we going to do while we're here?" he questioned. Dumbledore looked at him and put on a small smile. "You will be students here until we find a way to get you home." Snape's head snapped up. "What?" he questioned sharply. "James, Sirius, Remus, Peter, Arthur, and Lily will be in 5th year in Gryffindor until we find a way to get them back to their time." Severus Snape's face paled considerably. "You mean I have to teach them?" he asked, looking worried. Dumbledore nodded. The Marauders started to grin, and Harry, Ron, and Hermione smirked. "Oh, and Remus," Dumbledore said, addressing the older Lupin. Lupin looked at him curiously. "Professor Umbridge has left because she was unable to control the class. Seeing as she has left, if you would like to, you may have the defense against the dark arts position again." Lupin looked at him amazed. "The students and staff wouldn't mind?" he asked in a strange voice. Dumbledore smiled yet again. "Many students like you, and I'm sure if you were to return, they would be very happy." Harry, Ron, and Hermione cheered. "We get the best defense against the dark arts teacher back." Harry yelled happily. Lupin smiled and nodded. "I will have my old job back." Dumbledore nodded. "You may begin whenever you like." Remus. Sirius looked at him and clapped him on the back. "Moony, I wouldn't mind seeing you teach." Lupin looked at him uncertainly. "I don't think that would be possible." Sirius. "Sure it would. Sirius can stay in his animagus form, and I'll just tell everyone I bought him at the magical menagerie," Harry told him. Hermione giggled. "They don't sell dogs there, Harry." "Fine, I'll just say I found a lovable stray in Hogsmeade that became attached to me, and I adopted him then." Ron laughed at that. "Strange, but it just might work. What do you think, Professor Dumbledore, sir?" Dumbledore looked thoughtful, then nodded. "Even I could accept that. Sirius, you may attend Harry's classes, but on condition that you stay as your animagus form. And Severus, do not blow Mr. Black's cover," Dumbledore said, looking sternly at Snape. Snape nodded. "Yes, Headmaster." The Marauders, Lily and Arthur, looked at them confused. "Why does Padfoot have to stay in his animagus form?" "How did you find out?" James questioned. "We cannot tell you because of the consequences," Snape snapped, glaring at him. "Oi, quit picking on Prongs, Snivellis." The older Sirius snapped. "Oh," Harry muttered. "Want to make something out of it, Black?" Snape said, reaching for his wand. Sirius smirked and reached for his wand as well. "Sirius, No, Harry yelped and dashing forward, trying to prevent a fight that was breaking out. Sirius tried to push him away. Harry, get out of it, Sirius said through gritted teeth. Enough, came the stern voice of Dumbledore. Sirius and Snape turned to look at the old wizard. Stop this childish behavior. You are adults now, not little kids. Put the past behind you and look to the future. You're on the same side. There is no reason for you to fight. Sirius and Snape nodded and put their wands back into their pockets, even though they were still glaring at each other. Harry let out a sigh of relief, while the younger Sirius and James looked amused at what they had witnessed. Lupin shook his head. Professor, I already know more or less what I'm going to teach the students, so may I please just go straight to my next class? Lupin questioned. Dumbledore nodded, and Lupin left the room. Harry, Ron and Hermione smiled. That means that we've got him next, Ron said, sounding excited. Professor, may we please leave and get ready for our classes? Hermione asked. Dumbledore nodded, and they left the room. Equals 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 equals. Hermione, what time is it? Questioned Ron. 8:30 a.m. We should go down to the Great Hall and get breakfast. Harry and Ron nodded in agreement and made their way to the Great Hall. On arriving, they seated themselves at the Gryffindor table and looked to see Lupin eating rather quickly. They all smiled as Snape, Dumbledore, James, Sirius, Remus, Peter, Lily, Arthur, and a black dog filed in. The Marauders, Lily and Arthur, sat down nearest Harry, Ron and Hermione, while the black dog seated himself on the ground next to Harry. Dumbledore opened his arms out wide and made an announcement. Morning to all. There is an announcement I'd like to make. As you all know, Professor Umbridge has left due to complications. There was quite a few sniggers at this, especially from Fred and George, but I am happy to say that we have our old defense against the dark arts teacher back, Professor Lupin. At this, everyone broke into tumultuous applause, and there were even whistles coming from the Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, and Ravenclaw tables. Lupin stood up, took a bow, smiled, and sat down again. The younger Remus looked quite flustered. Dumbledore was about to continue when there was a huge cry from one of the girls from Ravenclaw. We love you, Professor Lupin. We don't care about your condition. Lupin blushed bright red, and Dumbledore chuckled. All the Marauders grinned at this, and even looked to the younger Lupin. The black dog barked, while Harry, Ron, and Hermione laughed. Lupin's way more popular than Snape. Ron whispered to Harry. Maybe that's because he's fair and a really nice person, Harry whispered back. Suddenly, there was a huge shout from the Slytherin table. You mean we're going to be taught by that monster again? Came the cruel voice of Draco Malfoy. Lupin paled, and so did the younger Remus. Harry, who was shaking with anger, was just about to stand up when Hermione got there first. Everyone turned to stare at her. Her eyes were ablaze, and she was looking at Malfoy with the utmost loathing. Professor Lupin is not a monster. He's a more decent wizard than anyone in your family, Malfoy. So, he's a little different from everyone else. Who cares? Not many. You just like putting other people down to make you feel big. I'm telling you now that it's pathetic. So why don't you just grow up, Malfoy? And with that, she sat back down, still fuming. It was after a few moments of stunned silence that Dumbledore started clapping. Eventually, everyone else did too. Hermione looked up in surprise to see Harry and Ron grinning at her. She looked over to see Lupin, who was nodding and smiling happily at her. She bit her lip as she looked away. She smiled weakly at the Marauders, Arthur and Lily, who were clapping madly and grinning. As I was saying before I was interrupted, there will be a ball on Christmas Eve. Third years and over may attend, Dumbledore said, smiling now. Let the feast begin. Equals 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 equals. Hermione, I still can't believe you did that, Ron said, looking amazed. Hermione smiled broadly. Well, It's the fact that he's always hurting other people's feelings, and I guess I was ready to erupt, Hermione said, shrugging. That was even better than when you slapped Malfoy in third year, Harry exclaimed. The Marauders, Arthur and Lily looked at her in surprise. You slapped Malfoy? Hermione grinned. Yep, but he's nothing like his dad. He's always saying, wait till my father hears about this, Hermione said, putting on an uncanny impression of Draco. Harry and Ron laughed. Suddenly, Ginny walked into the common room. She saw Harry and waved slightly. Hi, Harry, she said, while blushing like mad. Oh, hi, Gin, what's up? Harry said happily. Ginny immediately bolted up the girls' dormitories. The Marauders, Harry and Ron looked at each other looking confused, while Lily and Hermione smiled at each other. What was that all about? Sirius asked, looking confused. Hermione sighed. Isn't it obvious? Ron sighed. You said the same thing about Lupin when we couldn't figure out what was wrong with him every month, Ron said, rolling his eyes. Hermione sniffed. Now that was obvious. I still can't believe you guys didn't figure it out. Well, like Lupin said in third year, you're the cleverest witch of your age I've ever met, Hermione. Wow, how'd you remember that? The only thing I remember on that night was them explaining about the past and Pettigrew. Oh, and of course, who could forget Hermione's outburst when we all thought that Sirius was still a murderer and Lupin helped him? Harry said, sounding amused. Hermione hung her head. I still feel guilty about that. The black dog barked and nuzzled into Hermione's leg. Hermione smiled. What was it again? Something along the lines of, Harry, don't trust him. He's been helping Black get into the castle. He wants you dead too. He's a werewolf, Ron said, imitating Hermione. Harry just stared at him, dumbstruck. How do you remember that stuff? Anyway, we're getting off track. We were talking about Ginny, Hermione said. Suddenly, Ron's eyes lit up. Ooh, is it because she's still out? Hermione. Hermione glared at him as if trying to send him a hint through her eyes. Ron finally understood and nodded. I still don't get what I did wrong, Harry said. Looking worried, should I go talk to her? No, she still fancies you, Harry, Ron said, while Hermione and Lily slapped their foreheads. You idiot, Lily said, looking annoyed. Harry wouldn't muck around with my sister. Not if he wanted to die at a young age, Ron said, smirking at Harry. Wait a minute, guys. What's the time? James said, looking curious. Hermione took one look at her watch and jumped up. My God, we're 5 minutes late, Hermione cried, while grabbing hold of her bag and rushing down the corridor. What do we got first? Harry yelled. Defense against the dark arts. They all rushed into the classroom and quickly took their seats. Lupin was smiling at them all. So good of you to join us, he said pleasantly. Now, before these 9 came in late, I was just saying that today you can choose the topic on what we talk about, so any suggestions? Lavender timidly raised her hand. Yes, Lavender? Well, sir, if you don't want to, I don't mind, but, we were wondering, could you tell us about your transformations once a month? She asked. Lupin looked to everyone. They were all staring at him hopefully. He sighed. What do you want to know? Immediately, several people raised their hands. What's it like? Is it really painful? Questioned Dean Thomas. Lupin pulled a face. Painful is one way to describe it. Lots of people cringed at that. Where do you go for your transformations? Parvati questioned. Lupin hesitated on that one. I'm not going to tell you, he said simply. Immediately, there was a classroom of moans. Oh, why not, Professor? Neville asked. In case any of you decide you want to meet a werewolf and accidentally get bitten, that's why, Lupin said bitterly. It was Remus who raised his hand next. Lupin looked at his younger self questioningly. Do any animals visit you while you transform? He asked. Lupin was about to shake his head when he stopped. Hermione's cat Crookshanks does every now and then, and Harry's dog has started visiting me as well, Lupin said, smiling at the black dog, who barked. Lupin chuckled. Hey, Harry, what's your dog's name? Questioned Lavender. Harry looked at her in surprise. It's so cute. Ron held back a laugh. while Hermione tried her best not to giggle. His name's Snuffles, Harry told her. Snuffles? Dean Thomas said, looking amused. Yeah, I think the name suits him perfectly. Lavender squealed, "Can I stroke him?" she asked, looking hopeful. Well. Harry looked to the black dog in question. The dog ran up to Lavender and brushed himself against her legs. He's so cute. Wait till she finds out that it's Sirius Black in his animagus form. She won't think that he's cute then. She'll be screaming murder, Ron whispered. Harry and Ron laughed at that. What's so funny? Seamus asked. Nothing, Harry said, calming down. Seamus looked at Harry, Ron, and Hermione suspiciously, but dropped it. Hey, I've just had an idea, Lupin said. Everyone turned to look at him. You all remember when we fought the Boggart back in third year? He questioned them all. Everyone nodded. Well, how about we try something different with a Boggart? For instance, practicing a charm that acts like a shield against the Dementors, Lupin told them. They all looked interested at this. You mean fight off Dementors when they come near you? James questioned. Lupin nodded. I'd like to try that, Neville muttered. Eventually, everyone seemed to want to try it. The last time I saw a Boggart, it was in the... Suddenly, he stopped talking. There came a huge rattling sound from under his desk. He looked under it, then quickly retreated. A moon appeared in the sky, and everyone looked stunned. Looks like we didn't have to go very far. Harry, please come here, Lupin said, trying to ignore his biggest fear that was in front of him. Immediately, Harry got up and walked over to Lupin, but as he did so, the moon changed into a Dementor. Harry stopped dead in his tracks. Harry, you know the drill. Harry nodded and took out his wand, but not before he found himself in the familiar cold. Once again, Harry's eyes darted to the back of his head. He couldn't see. Once again, he heard his mother's screams and his father. Lily, take Harry and go. It's him. Go. Run. I'll hold him off. Dash. The sounds of someone stumbling into a room, a door bursting open, a cackle of high-pitched laughter. Not Harry. Not Harry. Please, I'll do anything. Dash. Stand aside, girl. Dash. Harry. Harry's eyes flew open as he looked up into the face of Lupin. It took him a moment to realize where he was. Harry wiped the sweat from his forehead. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. You weren't prepared, Lupin said, looking apologetic. I heard them again, and it was the loudest yet, Mom and Dad. Harry trailed off when he realized that everyone was watching him. Lily and James? The younger Remus questioned. Harry nodded. He turned to look at Lily and James and found them shaking. We heard it, Lily whispered, looking very pale. Right, shall we try that again? Lupin asked. Harry nodded. I'm ready this time, he said, gripping his wand. Ready and go, Lupin yelled. Once again, the whole room turned cold. Harry gripped his wand tighter. Me and Dad won the Quidditch Cup together, Harry thought. It was the happiest thought he had yet. His face set, he strode forward. Expecto Patronum, Harry cried. Immediately, a white stag burst out of the tip of his wand and charged at the Dementor. Excellent, Harry. 50 points to Gryffindor. Excellent, Patronus. Lupin yelled happily. Everyone burst into applause as Harry grinned. Lily and James were looking at Harry with proud expressions on their faces. Harry bowed and said, Thank you, you're all too kind. Everyone laughed, even Lily and Hermione. Lupin shook his head while smiling. Just like your father, the black dog started barking madly and Lupin laughed. I think Snuffles is agreeing with you, Professor, Hermione said, eyeing the dog. Suddenly, the bell went. Lupin smiled. Well, next lesson, we'll try producing patron uses. Harry, you can help them, Harry nodded. See you later, Professor. Harry, Ron, and Hermione said in unison. See you three later and sooner than you think, Lupin said, smiling. They all looked at him confused. What do you mean by that? Lupin just smiled and left the classroom. Equals 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 equals. All right there, Scarhead. Harry whirled around and came face to face with Draco Malfoy. "What do you want, Malfoy?" Harry asked, not taking his eyes off his enemy. "Nothing really. It just looks like you've made friend with another mudblood," Malfoy said, nodding to Lily. Harry looked angrily at Malfoy and pulled out his wand. "Harry, don't," Hermione whispered. "Don't call her a mudblood," Harry snarled. James, Sirius, Remus, Peter, and Arthur had stood in front of Lily, wands pointed right at Malfoy. "Oh, so Potter needs his little gang with him to fight me? I knew you were weak, Potter, but I didn't think you were that weak." Malfoy smirked evilly. Harry felt his blood boil. "Potter, maybe you should die, and then we would all be happy. Then you could go see your mud-blood mother," Malfoy said, sounding amused. Harry's eyes were ablaze. He was just about to hex Malfoy when James got there first. He strode over to Malfoy and pinned him against a wall. "Don't you ever insult Harry or his mother. You have absolutely no right," James said, looking angrier than Harry had ever seen him. The black dog growled and bit Malfoy right on the foot, making him yell in pain. James let go of him, but not before punching him square in the jaw. Malfoy fell to the floor, looking at James in shock. Malfoy muttered something and stood up. "I hope you meet the same sticky end as your parents, Potter," Malfoy said before storming off. Harry didn't stop to think and cursed him. "Rictus Sempra," he shouted. Malfoy went flying backwards, but not before pulling out his own wand and cursing Harry. "Avert static," he cried. "What's going on here?" a voice questioned. It was Snape, Lupin, and McGonagall. Immediately, a babble broke out. McGonagall silenced them. "One at a time, please. Mr. Malfoy, what happened?" Malfoy gave it in his version. Then it went from him to James to Ron, then to Harry. "I see," McGonagall said. She looked at them all sternly. 20 points from Slytherin and detention tonight at 7, she told Malfoy. Then she turned to Harry and James. 20 points from Gryffindor and detention for a week. Whether you were defending Mr. Potter's family or not, it doesn't matter. You had no right to hex him. You know the rules. No magic in the corridors, McGonagall told them. "Now, get to your next class," she told them all. Harry started to walk off with James, Sirius, Ron, Hermione, and Lily when McGonagall stopped him. "Harry, could I please have a word with you?" Harry turned around and walked over to McGonagall. McGonagall walked into the nearest classroom and shut the door. "Potter, I have some good news for you," she said, smiling one of her rare smiles. "What is it, Professor?" "We found a way to bring your parents back to life." Lupin, James, Lily, and the black dog made their way out onto the grounds. Sirius and Remus were trying to think up a way to prank Snape. After walking in silence, Lily spoke up. "Where are you taking us?" she asked them. "Somewhere where Sirius can become his human form, so that we can talk," Lupin told her. After a while, they found themselves outside the Whomping Willow. "We're going to Shrieking Shack?" James questioned, looking confused. "We'll explain everything when we're in there," Lupin told him firmly. Equals 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 equals. On entering the Shrieking Shack, James and Lily seated themselves on the four-poster bed. As soon as Lupin shut the door, Sirius transformed back into his human self. "Ah, finally. I didn't think I'd walk on two legs again," Sirius said, sighing with relief. James laughed. "So, what do you want to know?" "Question, Lupin. We know you have questions that you want answered, so go ahead." "Well," James looked from Sirius to Remus. "Why is Padfoot in his animagus form? Why can't he just walk around like any other human being?" Sirius let out a hollow laugh. "Let's just say it's a long story," Sirius said. "Well, we have plenty of time. Why don't you tell us?" James inquired. "Well, when you and Lils were killed, it was because Voldemort was after Harry. You asked me to be the secret keeper, but I refused and told you to have Wormtail. So right at the last minute, we switched." Sirius gulped and took a deep breath. "I thought that Voldemort would come after me, but I was wrong. Telling you to have Peter as the secret keeper was the biggest mistake of my life, and you all paid for it." Sirius shut his eyes and tried to calm himself down. Peter was working for the dark side. He was working for Voldemort. So, when I told him that he was secret keeper, he immediately went and told Voldemort. He told him the information he needed to know. Sirius, by now, was shaking. It looked as though he was trying his hardest not to cry. James and Lily looked at him sympathetically. "Well, that night, Voldemort broke into your house, killed James, and advanced on Harry. But Lils, you got in the way. You pleaded with Voldemort to kill you instead of him. So he did, but when he turned on Harry, somehow the curse rebounded and Voldemort disappeared for 14 years. James and Lily looked at him in astonishment. When I arrived at Godric's Hollow, the house had exploded. Hagrid was holding Harry. I asked him to give him to me because you'd made me godfather. James. Sirius shook his head. He refused and said it was Dumbledore's orders that he had to be taken to his Aunt Petunia's. Lily gasped. Petunia's? The poor boy. She absolutely hates magic. And according to how Harry acted when I asked him if he wanted to come live with me, they treat him like dirt. James and Lily's faces were one of shock. So, when Harry was taken, I went to find Peter, but when I arrived at his, there was no sign of a struggle. I was worried, but the next day, I cornered him and he yelled out for everyone to hear how I'd betrayed the both of you. Then he used some sort of spell which slaughtered 13 muggles, and he transformed into a rat and went into the sewers. Lily and James looked absolutely horrified. But what happened to you after that? Lily asked, her voice shaky. I was sent to Azkaban without a trial. What? Lily and James looked completely shocked and horrified. Yep, 2 years ago, I escaped by transforming into my animagus form. I swam to Hogwarts, where I knew where Peter was, because when he transformed into an animagus, he purposely cut off his finger. James, who was a loss for words, looked to Lupin. James, everything we're telling you is completely true, Lupin told him. So, in other words, Wormtail betrays us, James said. Sirius nodded, then he snarled. 2 years ago, Moony and I attempted to kill him, but Harry stopped us. Stopped you? Is he mad? James gasped. Lupin shook his head. He had a very good reason to stop us. He said he didn't want his father's best friends to become murderers just for Wormtail. Unfortunately, that night, when we'd explained everything to Harry, Ron, and Hermione, we were taking Pettigrew up to Hogwarts when I transformed and I didn't take my potion. Therefore, I was a monster and Pettigrew got away. I'll never forget the look he gave me when he first saw me. It was one of absolute hatred, Sirius said, looking sad. He thought you were the murderer. I know, but still. Your son is bloody, amazing, James. He can produce an excellent Patronus like you saw earlier today. Did you teach him that, Remus? Lily questioned. Lupin nodded. Then you really are an excellent teacher. Not many fifth years can produce a Patronus. He learned it in his 3rd year. Actually, he saved my life by doing so, Sirius told him, looking wistful. Wow. One question that I would like to know, though, Lily said, looking curious. Sure, what is it? Lupin asked. When did I start going out with Mr. Bullying Torag here? She asked, nudging James. Hey, I am not, James said, looking annoyed. Sirius let out a bark-like laugh. You started going out with him in 7th year. He actually managed to deflate his head, Sirius said, looking amused. Harry is in some ways like Lils. He doesn't like to see anything bad happen to someone, but he knows how to fight back, and he looks just like you, James, and heck, he breaks rules too. He's got a hold of your invisibility cloak and the Marauder's map, Lupin told him. Hey, what time is it? Questioned James. Why? Lily asked. Because I'm getting hungry, James moaned. Actually, I am as well, Sirius admitted. You're always hungry, Padfoot, James and Lupin said at the same time, then started laughing. It's 7:30, Sirius. You'd better transform back into a dog, Sirius groaned. Hey, we'd better meet Harry now. We need to tell him the good news, Lupin told his friend. Sirius' eyes lit up. Oh yeah, let's go, let's go, let's go, Sirius said, transforming into a dog and bounding off. Lupin chuckled. James sniggered. Hasn't changed much, has he? Nope. Come on, let's go. And with that, they left the shrieking shack and made their way to the Great Hall. Harry stared weakly at McGonagall. You're kidding me, right? This is all some sort of joke. McGonagall shook her head and smiled. I'm not joking, Harry. We've almost managed to revive them. We just need one more ingredient concerning you. Me? What do I have to do with it? Harry questioned, looking curious. Well, we're making a potion that can bring them back, but in order to do so, we need a few drops of blood from someone in the Potter family. Seeing as you're the only Potter alive, we need to take a few drops of blood from you. That is, if you're willing to do it. Harry's jaw dropped. Are you kidding me? Of course I'll do it. McGonagall's smile widened. Very well, Potter. Meet me in the hospital wing at 7 tonight. Lupin, Sirius, and Dumbledore will be there as well. Harry nodded and made his way out of the classroom. Equals 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 equals. Harry, there you are. Harry whirled around to see Hermione, Ron, Remus, Arthur, and Sirius running towards him. Hey guys, what's up? Harry asked. Oh, Remus, Arthur, and Sirius have just played a hilarious prank on the Slytherins, including Snape. Harry smiled distractedly. He was too busy thinking about reviving his parents that night. Harry, hello, Ron said, waving his hand in front of Harry's face. Huh? What? Harry said, looking around at the others in a daze. Did you hear what we just said? Sirius asked, looking at him concerned. Huh? Oh, sorry, my mind's on other things, Harry said, looking apologetic. What is it, Harry? Hermione asked. Harry hesitated. Should he tell them? In the end, he decided to, knowing that they would find out anyway. Dumbledore's found a way to bring my parents back to life, Harry said, sounding excited. Hermione's and Ron's jaws dropped. You're joking. Harry shook his head and smiled. Nope, they're being revived tonight at 7-inch. Oh, Harry, I'm so happy for you. Hermione squealed, hugging Harry. You'll be able to get to know your parents and spend time with them and Dash. Hermione, shut up, Ron said, rolling his eyes. But this is so exciting. Hermione squealed. Ron rolled his eyes again. Sheesh, women. Remus, Arthur, and Sirius sniggered, while Harry just grinned. Hermione tooted. Don't tell anyone about tonight. I don't want anyone knowing Harry told them. They all nodded in understanding. So what do we have next? Harry asked, casting around for another subject. Potions, Ron groaned. Oh great, another lesson to endure with Snape. He absolutely hates me. Harry moaned. Oh Harry, he isn't that bad, Hermione said, frowning at him. Hermione, stop trying to defend him. He's horrible. Don't you remember when he took points from Gryffindor just because you knew the answer to a question? Ron pointed out to her. Hermione pulled a face and nodded. True. And when he was going to give Sirius and Lupin to the Dementors, and they were both innocent. All right. Point taken, Hermione snapped. Harry and Ron looked to Sirius and Remus and found them both pale-faced. Snape tried to give us to the Dementors of Azkaban. Remus gasped. Hermione shifted around uncomfortably. Well, it's a long story. Come on, we're going to be late for potions. We don't want points taken from Gryffindor, Hermione said quickly and rushed off to the dungeons. Equals 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 equals. On arriving in the potions class, Harry, Ron, and Hermione quickly sat down and got their ingredients out of their bags. Snape opened the door and strode into the classroom, his robes billowing behind him. He stood at the front of the classroom and glared around at them all. Everyone, get your ingredients out for the Veritaserum potion now. he barked. Everyone quickly got out their ingredients and sat still to wait for Snape's next instruction. Now, who can tell me how you make a Veritaserum potion? He questioned, looking around. As usual, Hermione raised her hand. Anyone at all? He asked, completely ignoring Hermione's hand that was waving in the air like mad. Oi! Hermione's got her hand up, so she knows the answer. Sirius yelled out. Snape stood in front of Sirius with a strange gleam in his eye. 10 points from Gryffindor and detention black. Hey, that's not fair, Harry cried. He was stating the obvious because you were too blind to see it. All the Gryffindors sniggered, while Snape looked more menacing than ever. What did you say to me, Potter? Snape whispered in a menacing tone. You heard me. You're an unfair teacher, unlike Professor Lupin. Harry yelled out. There were cheers from the Gryffindors and boos from the Slytherins. Remus seemed rather flustered. Snape slowly advanced on Harry with an unpleasant smirk on his face. The whole class held their breath. Detention Potter and 50 points from Gryffindor, Snape shouted. 50, Harry said in disbelief. And Potter, if you don't shut up, I will take 50 points from each Gryffindor in this room, Snape said with a smirk. Harry glared at him, but did as he was told. The class went by badly, until the last 5 minutes that made it worse than ever. Hermione was trying to help Neville with his potion because it was going so horribly wrong. Snape saw this, and as usual swept across the room and leered down at them. Neville, who panicked, accidentally dropped too much of an ingredient into the cauldron, making it explode. Hermione quickly ducked, but Neville, who was still standing, got soaked with the concoction, making boils come out all over his body. Longbottom, how many times do I have to tell you, do not put too much of an ingredient in, unless you want this to keep happening? Snape bellowed. Neville, who was on the verge of tears, ran out of the room. Hermione stood up and started to clean away the spilled concoction that had gone everywhere. Longbottom, as in Frank Longbottom's son? Remus muttered. Harry nodded. That's 20 points from Gryffindor for your idiotic fellow Gryffinder's work. Every Gryffindor glared at him. They all absolutely loathed Snape because he always found a way to take points from their house. Professor, that's not fair though. You can't just take points from our house just because Neville did the potion wrong. He's never been that good with potions anyway, Parvati cried out. Silence. All of you Gryffindors will stay behind after this lesson and clean this mess up by hand. No magic, Snape snapped. All the Gryffindors went silent at this remark. But Professor, I can clear it up. I was the one who was nearest Neville. Therefore, I should take the punishment, Hermione told him. Snape glared at her. Very well, Miss Granger. Hermione quickly muttered something, and a bright light shot out of her wand and hit all the places where the concoction had been spilt. The potion disappeared, and the Gryffindors cheered. 5 points from Gryffindor for being an insufferable know-it-all, Snape snapped. As soon as this was said, the bell rung. But all the Gryffindors just sat there in shock as they all looked to Hermione, who had gone very red. She quickly packed her stuff and fled out of the classroom. Equals 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 equals. I don't believe Snape. How could he take points from Hermione just because she knew a decent spell? Arthur cried. Well, that's what Snape's like, Harry grimaced. I'm going to go find Hermione, he said, and with that, he ran off. Sirius was absolutely fuming over his detention, while Ron was seething. That greasy-haired git. He took 115 points from Gryffindor in one class. I'm going to complain to McGonagall about this, Ron said through gritted teeth. Where were Prongs and Lils? Remus questioned. Everyone remained silent at this question. They had not shown up throughout the whole of the lesson. Very good question, Sirius said, looking thoughtful, completely forgetting about Snape and the detention. Hey guys! Everyone whirled around to see Lily and James running towards them. Lost track of time, We were talking with your older selves, Lily said, while gasping for breath. Really, where? Remus asked. Shrieking Shack, James answered, long story, he said, seeing their friends' questioning looks. Peter slowly made his way out of the potions class. Hey, Wormtail, what were you doing in there? Sirius asked. Lily and James tensed when they saw him. I was talking with Snape, he said, his eyes darting around everywhere. I'm feeling rather hungry. I'm going to go get something to eat now, he said, and with that, he sidled off to the Great Hall. When everyone turned to look at Lily and James, they were surprised and shocked to see James with his teeth gritted and looking angry, while Lily looked like she was about to cry. Hey guys, are you all right? Remus asked, looking concerned. Yeah, we were fine, James said, tearing his eyes away from where Peter had been standing. Where are Harry and Hermione? Lily asked suddenly. Well, we'd better fill you in on the details, Ron said. They then explained everything, while Lily and James looked horrified. Snevelis gave you detention? That is totally unfair. James cried. Sirius just shrugged. I'll prank him later. I've just remembered something, Lily said, looking thoughtful. What is it? James asked. The Christmas ball is in 2 weeks. We need to start thinking about getting dates. Everyone immediately started grinning. And yes, I'll go with you, James. So don't bother asking. James let out a whoop of joy, while everyone else laughed. Suddenly, sobbing could be heard, and everyone whirled around to see Hermione and Harry walking towards them. Ron ran up to Hermione and hugged her. This seemed to take everyone by surprise, including Hermione, but she hugged back gratefully. Harry smiled. When they pulled away, Hermione wiped her eyes and smiled weakly. Hermione, do you want to go to the ball with me? Ron asked, looking nervous. Harry couldn't help himself and started to grin and tried his best to hold back laughter. Hermione just looked at him in disbelief, but then she smiled. Sure, Ron grinned. Cool. I take it you've taken my advice from last year, Hermione said, looking amused. Yeah, you could say something like that, Ron said, offhandedly. Harry sniggered. Well, it looks like the 2 prefects are getting together at last. Oi, well, what about you, Mr. Famous Harry Potter? Have you got a date? Ron questioned. Harry immediately shut up. No, but I'll have one, he said, smiling. Oh, really? Who are you asking then? None of your business, Harry said defensively. Sheesh, forgive me for asking, Ron said. Hermione giggled. I know who Harry's going to ask. Harry's jaw dropped and started making frantic signs for her to not tell Ron. Who then? Ron questioned. Here's a really big hint. He asked her out last year and got turned down, Hermione said, grinning. Harry made strangling gestures around her neck, and she started laughing. Oh, Zhao, of course. So, when are you going to ask her? Right at that moment, Cho appeared. It looked like she was going to the girls' toilets. Harry immediately struck up the courage to ask her then. I'm going to ask her now. Well, this should be interesting, James muttered, and everyone watched as he strode over to Cho. Hey, Cho, Harry said nervously. Oh, he had josai, smiling. I wanted to ask you something. Really, what is it? Cho asked, looking interested and hopeful. Wango Ballwime. Harry mentally slapped himself and felt himself go red at the sniggers from the gang. Cho looked at him with a puzzled expression on her face. What? Do you want to go to the ball with me? Harry stammered. Oh, Cho's face brightened. Sure, I'd love to. Great, see you at then. Yeah, see you then, Harry. Harry slowly walked over to the gang. All the boys were shaking with laughter, while Lily and Hermione both smiled at him. Harry quickly walked off to the Great Hall, making Hermione and Lily follow. Harry, wait. Hermione yelled. Harry found himself blushing madly. He just made a fool of himself in front of all of his friends and his father. What? Harry snapped. Hermione looked at him, taken aback. Harry, what's the matter? You're going with Cho to the ball. So why are you so embarrassed? Lily asked. Because I just made a fool of myself in front of everyone. That's why. So now them lot, he said, indicating to Ron, Sirius, Remus, Arthur, and James, who were laughing madly. They're not going to stop teasing me because I got tongue-tied in front of her. And that's not the first time it's happened, Harry said, looking miserable. Harry, Lily said, grabbing his arm. Harry pulled himself out of Lily's grip. No, just leave me alone. I want to be alone, Harry said, and with that, he walked off that hat night. Harry made his way out of the common room and down to the hospital wing. He consulted his watch and noticed that it was 6:50. He had 10 minutes yet. He dawdled around in a daze, and a few minutes later, found himself outside the hospital wing. Just as he was about to walk in, he heard voices behind him. Harry, wait. Harry spun around and came face to face with the young Sirius, Remus, James, and Arthur. Lily and Hermione told us that you think we're going to tease you because you got tongue-tied about asking out Cho. Is that true? James asked. Harry looked to the floor and nodded. Well, we gotta admit, it was funny, Sirius said, chuckling, but stopped when Remus elbowed him in the stomach. We're not going to tease you. Remus asked out a girl a few days ago, and he got turned down, James said, grinning at his fellow marauder. Harry grinned. You know, if the girls in this school knew who you were, you'd be extremely popular, Moony, Sirius, and Remus gaped. Itch, how did you know? Sirius said, aghast. Well, let's just say dash, but he was cut off by a deeper male's voice. Let's just say I told him. Everyone turned to see the older Remus smiling. You told him. Moony, how could you? Sirius said, looking outraged. Lupin chuckled. I had no other choice. I accidentally let slip to Harry that I knew how to work the map. When Harry got suspicious, I told him that I helped write it and went by the name of Moony. Actually, there's something I never got round to asking you, Harry. How did you get a hold of the map? He asked, looking curious. Well, Fred and George found it in Filch's office in their first year. They kept it, then gave it to me in third year, after I fell off my broom in that Quidditch match because of the Dementors. Fred and George? As in Fred and George Weasley. Yeah. Everyone suddenly looked at Harry, who was grinning. What is it? James questioned. Well, Fred and George are very grateful to the Marauders because they're, what was it again? Working tirelessly to help a new generation of law breakers. Yeah, that was it, Harry said, sniggering. Lupin chuckled again. You wait till they find out that they've been friends with two of the Marauders for 2 years. They'll do their nuts when they find out that they could have asked them help on pranks. Everyone started laughing again. Well, Harry, it's 6:57 and your parents are going to be revived soon, Lupin said in a businesslike tone. Where's Sirius? Harry asked. He's inside, Lupin said in a whisper. Is he in his animagus form or in his human form? Well, at the moment in his animagus form, but when Lily and James are revived, he's going to turn back into his human form, Harry smiled. Then an idea struck him. Hey, when my mom and dad are revived, do you reckon that they could go to the ministry and plead serious innocence? Harry questioned. Lupin thought about it for a moment, then smiled. I would have thought so, but we'd have to explain everything to them first. They won't know what's happened after they died, Harry nodded and smiled. Sirius will be free. I can't wait. Lupin smiled. Come on, Harry, 1 minute. And with that, they walked into the hospital wing. Equals 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 equals. Harry, come in and sit down. It was McGonagall. Standing around a cauldron in the middle of the hospital wing was Dumbledore, Madame Pomfrey, Sirius, Lupin, who walked in and stood next to it, and McGonagall herself. Harry sat down in the chair next to the cauldron and looked into it. It was a strange bluish-pinky color. Right, Harry. All we need is the few drops of blood from you. Madame Pomfrey is going to prick you with a needle. Then all you have to do is just hold your arm out over the cauldron and let a few drops of blood fall in, but I must warn you that you may pass out afterwards, McGonagall explained. Harry nodded and tried not to look at the needle that Pomfrey was holding. Harry felt a little pinch and looked back. Madame Pomfrey had done it. Next, he held his arm out and tried to squeeze the blood out of his arm. After about 4 drops, the potion turned to a dark scarlet. Suddenly, the cauldron started to bubble, and 2 figures appeared in the form of Lily and James Potter. That was all Harry saw before he passed out. Equals 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 equals. Are you sure he's all right? Does he need any medication? Came a frantic woman's voice. He's fine, Lils. It's the after effect of the potion besides. He's had a lot worse than this. Harry knew who the male's voice was. It was Sirius, but the woman's voice he didn't recognize. Suddenly, it all came back to him, reviving his parents. That meant that the woman's voice was. He snapped his eyes open and came face to face with a green-eyed, red-headed woman. His mother, Lily Potter. Harry thought that he was going to pass out again, seeing his mother alive and well. Harry, are you all right? Lily asked, before Sirius had the chance to ask his godson's well-being. Sirius grumbled and glared at Lily, before looking at Harry with a smile on his face. Harry rubbed his eyes to make sure he wasn't seeing things. When he opened them again, Lily was still there. Harry smiled. I'm fine. Harry looked around and noticed that someone was missing. Where's Dad? He questioned. James is talking to Dumbledore in his office. He'll be back soon, Sirius reassured him. Harry nodded in understanding, then turned his gaze back to Lily. Lily had a heartwarming smile on her face. Harry, you've certainly grown from when I last saw you, Lily told him. Harry smiled weakly at this comment. Sirius grinned. Hey, Harry, want to go and play a prank on the Slytherins? Harry grinned back. Yeah, he made a move, but Lily pushed him back down again. You're staying right where you are until Madame Pomfrey has seen to you, Lily said, looking stern. She then turned to Sirius. Sirius, I would expect better of you. You're supposed to be his godfather. Sirius looked crestfallen. I know I am, but Lils, he's fine. I've already told you. It's the after effect of the potion that made him pass out. He's not ill, Sirius insisted. Harry nodded. I'm fine, Mum. Honest. Lily looked to the both of them suspiciously. I'd feel better if Madame Pomfrey were to see to you first, Harry sighed. Sirius grinned again. The joys of having a mother. Harry? Harry chuckled and looked to see Lupin entering the hospital wing. Remy, oh, it's so good to see you again, Lily said, throwing her arms around his neck. Lupin staggered backwards, looking slightly shocked. When he finally regained his composure, he patted Lily on the back. When she pulled away, she smiled. Lupin cleared his throat. Lils, I'd prefer if you didn't call me Remy. Just call me Remus or Lupin. Or Moony, Harry added. Lupin rolled his eyes, but nodded. Or Moony. Lily smiled happily, then looked to Sirius. I'm so happy. I bet you've been a wonderful godfather to Harry. Lily beamed. Sirius immediately went bright red and muttered something. A minute ago, you were more or less saying I was an irresponsible godfather. Lily waved her hand and shook her head. I didn't mean it, and with that, Lily exited the room to go and find James. Sirius shook his head, then whispered to Harry. I have never understood how your mother's mind works, Harry laughed. Madame Pomfrey bustled in, took one look at Harry and smiled. Potter, you should be fine. Go and see your parents. I'm sure they'll be happy to see you. Harry grinned and leapt off the bed and ran out of the hospital wing. Sirius transformed into his animagus form, and Lupin ran out as well. As they reached the gargoyle to Dumbledore's office, James appeared from behind it. He didn't look too happy. Harry immediately became nervous. Hi, Dad. I'm your son, Harry Potter, Harry said, feeling rather stupid. James took one look at Harry, and his eyes widened. My God, he said softly. I know, he's the spitting image of you, isn't he? Lupin said, looking amused. James nodded, then smiled. Pleased to meet you. I'm James Potter, your father. James held his hand out, and Harry shook it and laughed. This feels really weird. I agree, James nodded. He then looked around, and his eyes landed on Lupin. "My God, Mooney, is that really you?" James said, looking astonished. Lupin nodded and grinned. "Yeah, it's me." James suddenly looked to the big black dog that was barking madly. "Is that?" James trailed off, looking to Lupin questioningly. Lupin nodded. "Long story as to why he's in his animagus form. I'll explain later." James nodded and walked over to the dog. Harry looked around. No one's around. He could turn back into his human form. The dog looked around and turned back into his human form. Sirius grinned. "Prong-see." He enveloped James in a hug and wouldn't let go. "Sirius, let go of James. I think you might be choking him," Lupin told him. When Sirius let go, James noticed that Sirius had tears in his eyes. "My God, Padfoot, what's wrong?" Sirius wiped away his tears and shook his head. "I'll tell you later. Meet me and Mooney in the Shrieking Shack at 8. We'll talk then." James nodded, then turned back to Harry. "So, Harry, what year are you in?" James asked. "Fifth," Harry answered. "He's very popular with the ladies," Sirius said with a grin on his face. Harry blushed bright red. "I am not." "You are. There are quite a few girls that like you. I've heard things," Sirius said, smirking. Harry blushed, if possible, even redder. Lupin chuckled. "Sirius, stop embarrassing the poor boy." James grinned as well. "Popular with the ladies? I was as well." "So I've heard from Padfoot," Harry smiled. "Harry, there you are." Harry spun around and saw Ron and Hermione running towards them. "Ron, Hermione, how did you guys get here without being spotted?" Harry said, looking at them in astonishment. They both cast their eyes to the ground, looking guilty. What? What have you done?" "Well, we, borrowed your invisibility cloak and the Marauder's map from your trunk," Ron said, sounding worried. Harry laughed. "And you thought I'd be angry about that?" Ron and Hermione looked at him, slightly taken aback. "You're not angry?" Hermione questioned. "No, why should I be?" "Oh," Ron then turned to Hermione, looking annoyed. "So after all that time of worrying about whether he's going to be mad at us, he isn't." "Hermione, I'm going to kill you," Ron said, looking angry. James laughed, and Ron and Hermione turned to look at him. They both looked completely gobsmacked. "You're James Potter, right?" Ron questioned. James nodded. Hermione's jaw dropped in shock. The likeness between them. "Wow," Hermione said, looking shocked. Harry felt rather uncomfortable under his two best friends' stares, and so it seemed, did James. James quickly cast around for another subject. "So, Harry, do you play Quidditch?" "Does he play Quidditch?" Sirius echoed. "Prongs, of course he does, and I'm telling you now, he's bloody brilliant." Harry felt his cheeks flush red again. "I'm not that good." Everyone let out a groan. Lupin actually walked over to the wall and smacked his head against it several times. Hermione looked at him worriedly. "Harry, stop being modest." Sirius told him. "I am not," Harry stammered. "You are," Lupin said, putting his hand to his forehead. "That really hurt." He moaned. "Why'd you do it?" James asked. "Because Harry's too modest. He's just like Lily in that department," Lupin said. "Excuse me." Everyone whirled around to see Lily Potter, eyeing them all suspiciously. Her eyes landed on Ron and Hermione, and she smiled. "And who might you be?" she asked them. "Oh, I'm Ron Weasley." "And I'm Hermione Granger." "The Miss Know-It-All," Ron muttered. Hermione and Lily both glared at him. "I heard that," Lily told him, looking stern. "So did I." "Ron, if you want to go to the ball with me, you're going to have to be nice to me. Otherwise, I'm not going with you." Ron sighed and rolled his eyes. "Fine. Are you Lily Potter?" Hermione asked. Lily nodded and smiled. "She's really pretty." Ron goggled at her. Hermione elbowed him in the stomach, while Harry and James laughed. "I think we'll have to carry on with our chat later. I'm rather tired, and I think you lot probably are too. So I'll see you tomorrow morning," Lupin said, and with that, he walked off. "Me too. See you later, guys," Harry said and made to walk off. "Harry James Potter." Harry whirled around at the mention of his name to see Sirius looking sad. "Can I at least have a hug?" Harry smiled and gave him a hug. Then he decided to give James and Lily hugs before going off to the common room. While he walked up to his dormitory, he knew right away that his life was going to change, starting from tonight. Harry was awoken the next morning to a pillow being thrown at him. He opened his eyes and blearily peered around, grabbing his glasses as he went. When he put them on, standing in front of him was James, Lily, Lupin, and Sirius, who were all grinning madly. Harry yawned and looked at the time to find it was 7:30 in the morning. "Why do you have to wake me up so early?" "It's Saturday," Harry said, stifling a yawn. "Oh, that's nice, isn't it? We wake you up to tell you some really good news, and that's all we receive?" "Oh, why do you wake me up?" Charming James said sarcastically. "Well, what's the good news?" Harry asked, looking curious. "No, we're not going to tell you now, seeing as you don't want to know," Lupin said, folding his arms and smirking. Lily was giggling at Sirius, who was dancing on the balls of his feet. "Come on, guys. Just tell me," Harry said, looking even more curious now. James sighed, then grinned. "Well, if you must know, Dash." "I'm free," Sirius yelled happily. Harry blinked for a few minutes, not quite believing what he was hearing. When the information of what Sirius had just told him had sunk in, Harry grinned. "Seriously, you're free?" "Yeah, I'm free. I'm free. I'm free," Sirius said, jumping up and down excitedly, looking like a little boy. Harry immediately started jumping on his bed. "You're free. You're free. WHO," Harry shouted happily. He then jumped off his bed and hugged Sirius round the waist, who grabbed hold of Harry and swung him round in a circle. Then they both started doing a little dance, which made Lily, James, and Lupin laugh. Came a moan from Ron's bed. Harry grinned and grabbed hold of his pillow before smacking Ron over the head with it several times. Ron sat bolt upright and tried to avoid the blows being dealt to his head, but failing miserably. "Harry, stop it. Can't you see I'm trying to sleep?" Ron shouted, then grabbed hold of his duvet and pulled it over his head. Harry took no notice and grabbed hold of Ron's duvet and pulled it off him, leaving Ron to lay there in his paisley pajamas. Ron shivered, then sat up. "Harry, what is it? Why'd you wake me up?" Ron said, rubbing his eyes. "Sirius is free," Harry shouted in his ear. This time, Ron seemed much more awake. "Sirius is free? Really?" Harry nodded and started jumping on his bed again. Ron let out a great whoop of Yahoo before doing the same as Harry. Lupin, by this time, was in hysterics, along with James and Lily, who were crying with laughter at Sirius. Sirius was doing cartwheels and screaming loudly. Neville, Dean, Seamus, James, Sirius, Remus, and Peter let out moans and shouts of "shut up." Harry and Ron couldn't seem to contain their excitement. In the end, Harry was crying with happiness as he kept hugging Sirius around the waist. Eventually, Lily, James, Sirius, Lupin, Harry, and Ron went down to the Gryffindor common room. Harry, Ron, and Sirius couldn't sit down because they were so excited, so they stood and carried on doing little dances here and there. SOSO, when was Sirius freed? Harry questioned his mother and father. "Last night," James replied. "Lily and I went to the ministry and explained. At first they refused to believe it was us because we were supposedly dead, but after revealing a few things that only we would know, we told them about Sirius' innocence and Peter's betrayal, and thankfully, they believed us." Harry jumped up and down, hugging Ron at the same time. Suddenly, a yawn and a whisper could be heard coming from the girls' dormitories. "Crookshanks, what is it? It's 7:30 in the morning." Hermione's voice floated down into the common room. "Hermione, it's Harry. Come down here. We've got good news," Harry shouted. Hermione quickly made her way into the common room and stared at everyone around her with wide eyes. "What is it?" Hermione asked breathlessly. "It's Sirius. He's free," Harry yelled, while jumping up and down and giving Sirius a hug at the same time. Hermione let out an audible gasp, then burst into tears of happiness. She then enveloped Harry in a hug. "Oh, Harry, this is wonderful. You've got your parents and your godfather," Hermione cried. Harry hugged her back and then grinned happily at Ron. Suddenly, everyone went quiet on hearing someone coming down the stairs on the boys' side. Everyone looked to see Neville rubbing his eyes and looking around. His jaw dropped open in shock on seeing Lily and James. Then he let out a squeak of terror on seeing Sirius. He was just about to start screaming when Harry put a hand over his mouth. "It's okay. We can explain," Harry whispered. Neville nodded, while Harry took his hand away from Neville's mouth. After explaining everything to Neville, Neville smiled and looked rather happy. "Oh, Harry, I'm sure you must be thrilled to bits now that you have a family," Harry nodded vigorously. "So, you believe us?" Ron asked, looking at Neville curiously. Neville nodded. "Of course I believe you. You're my friends. Why would you lie to me? Anyway, if Sirius really was a murderer, wouldn't he have tried killing you by now?" Neville questioned, looking at Harry. Harry nodded. "Exactly what I'm talking about. Sirius is innocent." Neville smiled, then looked to Lupin. Professor, I know that now probably isn't a good time to bring it up, but that essay you set us on Patron uses, I'm finding it rather difficult to find information. Would it be possible if I had a bit more time on it?" Neville questioned, looking hopeful. Lupin nodded and smiled. "Why don't you ask Hermione to help you? I'm sure she'd help you if you were really stuck. After all, she's one of my best students." Hermione flushed a crimson color before muttering, "I'd love to help you, Neville." Ron and Harry grinned at each other. Ron held out his hand while smirking. "Pay up. I told you Hermione fancied Lupin. That's 10 galleons to me." Hermione flushed even redder, but this time she had an angry expression on her face. "I do not fancy Professor Lupin," she shrieked. "Well, it's either Lupin or Sirius. One or the other," Harry shrugged. "What? We know that you like one of those too. We heard you talking about it with Ginny at the HQ," Ron told her. Hermione narrowed her eyes at them. "You were listening in on our private conversation," Hermione said through gritted teeth while reaching for a wand. Ron's eyes widened, while Harry looked apprehensive. "Now, Hermione, it was just a little bit. You don't need to get all dash." "All what?" Hermione's eyes were bulging out of her sockets, while Harry and Ron looked at her in alarm. Neville was looking worried, while Lupin and Sirius couldn't help sniggering. Lily and James just watched the scene with interest. "You don't need to get all offended," Ron said. "Oh, really?" Hermione said, looking clearly annoyed. "So who do you like, Lupin or Sirius?" "I bet it's Sirius," Harry said. "You would say that 'cause he's your godfather," Ron said, grinning. Harry shrugged. "I do not fancy Sirius. Ginny does." As soon as Hermione shouted this, she quickly clapped her hands to her mouth in horror, while Harry, Neville, and Ron stared at her in disbelief. Sirius' eyes widened in amazement, while Lupin was still sniggering. Lily clapped a hand to her forehead, while James looked at her in concern. "Ginny fancies Sirius?" "Really?" Harry said, looking interested. Hermione swore under her breath, then glared at Harry and Ron. "You will not tell Ginny that I told you. She trusted me not to tell anyone." Harry nodded and smiled. "Hermione, when have I not managed to keep a secret?" Hermione pondered that question for a while, then looked back at Harry uncertainly. "Well, I don't think you've ever blabbed a secret that either Ron or I have told you." "There you go then. I'm a good friend to you all. I wouldn't tell Ginny," Harry reassured her. Sirius laughed, then muttered something that sounded suspiciously like, "Never trust a Potter." "So," Neville said, quickly changing the subject, "have you guys got dates for the ball at Christmas?" Harry, Ron, and Hermione nodded. Neville let out a sigh. "I was going to ask you again, Hermione, but I guess you're already taken." Hermione nodded and gave him an apologetic face. Lily looked at him sympathetically. Harry quickly nudged Ron in the stomach to prevent him from bursting out laughing. "So who are you going with?" Neville questioned, looking curious. "Well," Hermione suddenly went bright red. "I am going with Ron." Neville's eyes widened in shock and amazement. "Ron? Seriously?" Hermione looked at him, taken aback. "Why? What's the problem with me going with Ron?" Hermione asked. Well, Neville looked around uneasily. It's just the fact that you and him are always fighting, for instance. In third year, when he had to go at you because your cat attacked his rat, and he didn't forgive you for over 5 months. Everyone in the room tensed when he mentioned the word rat. Neville looked around uncertainly. Did I say something wrong? No, it's nothing. Well, actually, we might as well tell you. What? Well, you know Peter Pettigrew? Neville nodded. Well, he was Ron's rat. He was an unregistered animagus. Neville's eyes widened in shock. That would explain why he had a finger missing. I heard about that story of what happened. I thought it was a bit weird that Ron's rat had a finger missing too. You suspected him? Hermione said, looking amazed. Well, sort of, but I just waved it away. I thought I was being stupid. Neville, you're smarter than you look, Harry told him, to which Neville beamed. Thanks, Harry. Anyway, we're getting off track. I just hope that you two don't start yelling halfway through at the top of your lungs so everyone stops and stares at you, Neville said, putting his hands together and pretending to pray. Harry laughed, while Ron and Hermione looked at each other uneasily. Who are you going with, Harry? Are you going with Lavender again? No, I'm going with Cho Chang, Harry replied. Neville looked at him in amazement. Cho Chang, the sixth-year Ravenclaw. Harry nodded. The Ravenclaw seeker? Harry's heart dropped. Yeah, her. Hey, that reminds me. Harry, you're looking at the new Gryffindor keeper, Ron said, puffing his chest out and looking proud. Harry stared at him, obviously lost for words. When was this, then? Harry questioned. Last night at 7. I thought you might want some time alone with your parents, so I told the rest of the Gryffindor team that you were ill, and they believed me. My God, 3 Weasleys on 1 Quidditch team. Someone help us, Harry said, pretending to be terrified, but only ending with laughter. Ron grinned. Fred and George were proud of me for making the team, and I sent Mum and Dad a letter telling them. Gosh, a prefect and a Gryffindor keeper. There's no stopping you, is there? James looked at Ron with wide eyes. You're a prefect? Ron shifted around uneasily and nodded. I still think that Harry should have been made a prefect, not me, because, he's faced loads of dark stuff, and he's had better grades than me, and... Ron, shut up. You deserve it, Harry told him. Anyway, a Potter being made a prefect? I don't think so. I'm either too busy in detention or playing Quidditch, James grinned. I was made head boy, but I wasn't made a prefect, Harry grinned. What do you mean? You're too busy in detention. I don't recall ever seeing you in detention, Lupin said, looking curious. Snape, Harry said simply. Lupin then grinned. That would explain it then. Snivellis, James said, looking curious. He teaches here prongs, potions master, Lupin told him. James grinned. He picks on me all the time. He's horrible, and he's always saying I'm just like you. Harry pulled a face. I hate him. He says that you're just like me? Are you? Harry was about to shake his head when he considered it. I do break a lot of rules, for instance, being out of bed late at night. I normally take the invisibility cloak and the Marauder's map, Harry explained, but I can't think of anything dash. What about in third year? Hermione said suddenly. Harry looked at her confused. What? When you got a hold of the Marauder's map and you kept going through that tunnel to get a Hogsmeade because you didn't have permission, Hermione told him. Harry grinned. Oh yeah. Actually, you've just reminded me of something, Hermione, Lupin said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a piece of parchment. What's that? Ron asked. Well, when Harry was caught by Snape, he was told to empty his pockets. When Harry did, he picked up the Marauder's map and said something like, Professor Severus Snape, master of this school, commands you to yield the information you conceal. Yes, so. Ron raised an eyebrow. Well, when this happened, I assumed that Mr. Prongs, Padfoot, Moony, and Wormtail had something to say, didn't they? Yeah, Harry said curiously. He still didn't know where this was going. So, Harry, did you actually get a chance to read what we said? Lupin asked. Harry shook his head. Lupin grinned. It's a good thing I wrote it down. Then Harry's, Ron's, Hermione's, and Neville's jaws dropped. Harry quickly grabbed hold of the parchment and scanned through it before grinning and bursting into hysterical laughter. "What does it say?" Hermione asked, looking curious. "It says, Mr. Mooney presents his compliments to Professor Snape and begs him to keep his abnormally dash." Ron immediately burst out laughing and sunk to the floor. Neville walked over to the piece of parchment that was on the floor, scanned through it, and started laughing as well. Hermione sighed. "Can someone just read it already?" "I will," Neville volunteered, before clearing his throat. Mr. Mooney presents his compliments to Professor Snape and begs him to keep his abnormally large nose out of other people's business. James, Sirius, and Lily started laughing loudly. "Good one, Mooney," Sirius said, through tears of laughter. "What's going on?" a voice grumbled. Everyone turned to see the younger James, Sirius, Remus, and Peter walking into the common room. "Just reading something that you guys wrote to Professor Snape," Ron said, still laughing. The younger James immediately looked intrigued. "Really? What did we write?" "Wait, they'd better know the whole story," Hermione pointed out. "Otherwise, they won't know what we're on about." Before Harry could start explaining to them, Lily and Ginny walked out of the girls' dormitories, both rubbing their eyes. "Your laughing woke us up," Ginny said, looking miserable. "This'll cheer you up then," Harry said, and he quickly told them about what had happened to him in third year. "This is what you guys put," Harry said, started to read it. Mr. Mooney presents his compliments to Professor Snape and begs him to keep his abnormally dash. Like what Ron had done, Harry sunk to the floor, crying with laughter. Ginny watched Harry worriedly. "Here, I'll read it," Neville told them. Mr. Mooney presents his compliments to Professor Snape and begs him to keep his abnormally large nose out of other people's business. Lily started laughing, while Ginny giggled. "Professor Lupin, I never knew you to be so rude." Lupin laughed, then gestured for Neville to carry on. Neville cleared his throat. "Mr. Prongs agrees with Mr. Mooney and would like to add that Professor Snape is an ugly git again." There was laughter echoing around the room, while some were crying with laughter at what was being said. "Mr. Padfoot dash." "This should be interesting," Lupin muttered. Neville glared at him. "Excuse me, Professor, but I'm trying to read." Lupin looked at him, taken aback, then chuckled. "Sorry, Neville, carry on." Mr. Padfoot would like to register his astonishment that an idiot like that ever became a professor. Everyone, by this time, was crying with laughter, except Neville, who was just laughing a lot. And finally, Mr. Wormtail bids Professor Snape good day and advises him to wash his hair, the slime ball. At the last sentence, almost everyone was on the floor, clutching the stomachs from laughing so much. Finally, when everyone quietened down, Ron said, even though he was still chuckling, "If Fred and George were down here, and if they knew that you were the Marauders, they would so love you guys." "What? Who are the Marauders?" Fred's head popped out from behind the boys' door. Ron grinned at Harry, and they both shook their heads. "We have absolutely no idea." Fred and George appeared in scarlet pajamas, looking at Harry and Ron curiously. George folded his arms and grinned. "Ronald Weasley, if you don't tell us who the Marauders are, we will prank you for the rest of your life." Starting from now, Fred grinned and made his way towards Ron, who backed away from them in fear. Okay, I'll tell you," Ron shouted, looking terrified. "Well, who are they?" "Well, they're in this room, that's all I'm saying." Fred and George looked around, and their eyes landed on the older James, Sirius, and Lupin, who all three started grinning. Fred and George's eyes both widened in shock. "No way." Sirius grinned and said, "Yes way." They both just stood, too shocked to move. Does that mean that Professor Lupin dash?" George questioned, looking to Lupin, who nodded. "Yeah, Professor Lupin's a marauder," Fred yelled. Fred and George quickly got down on their knees and started flapping their arms up and down. "All hail the great Marauders!" James, Sirius, and Lupin all burst out laughing, while Ron and Harry couldn't help sniggering. Suddenly, George jumped up. He pointed straight at Lupin. "You're Mooney, aren't you?" Lupin nodded. George looked rather triumphant at this. Fred couldn't help staring. "You mean to tell me that we've been friends with two of the Marauders for 2 whole years?" Lupin and Sirius looked at each other, then looked back to the twins and nodded. "Hawk, this is unbelievable. Could you help us with our pranks? They need a teeny bit of help," Fred said, but then yelped when George smacked him round the head. "You don't ask them just like that, you idiot." "All right." Fred and George quickly got back down on the ground. "Oh, great Marauders, please help us with our pranks. We know that we aren't worthy, but we are the next generation of lawbreakers and in desperate need of expert help." Everyone burst out laughing, while James, through his tears of laughter, said, "Get up, young lawbreakers. We will teach you. Do not fear." Fred and George both leapt to their feet. "We're just quickly going to go and get changed, then we're going to play a prank on the Slytherins." And with that, they dashed up the boys' dormitories. When everyone had finally quieted down again, Ron turned to Ginny. "So," he said, casually, "have you got a date for the ball?" Harry looked at him in amazement. "I can't believe you're still going on about dates for the ball." Ginny went bright red and nodded. "Who is it?" Ron questioned. "And you might as well tell me, because I'll find out sooner or later." Ginny went even redder and pointed over to the 4 young Marauders. She was pointing right at Sirius, who was looking at the ceiling as if he was fascinated by it. Ron's, Harry's, Hermione's, Lupin's, and Sirius's jaws dropped open in shock. "You're going with Sirius?" Harry said, incredulously. Ginny nodded. Ron narrowed his eyes and looked to the young Sirius. "Black, I want a word with you." "Now." Sirius looked at Ron with raised eyebrows, but complied. They both left the Gryffindor common room. The older Sirius looked absolutely dumbstruck. "Oh God, I hope Ron doesn't bite my head off." "No, he'll probably just threaten you with the usual, 'Don't mess with my sister unless you want to die,' and also, he'll probably throw in Fred and George's protection and pulling pranks on him for the rest of his life for good measure," Harry explained, while Ginny blushed bright red. Suddenly, James stood up and looked to Harry. "I'm going down to get myself something to eat. I'm starving. If you get dressed, I'll carry you to the Great Hall if you want." Harry felt himself go hot round the face. I don't really want people making fun of me." "Don't worry, because if they do, I'll hex them," James said, reassuringly. Harry shrugged. "All right then. I take it that Dumbledore's going to announce to everyone about yours and Mum's revival this morning, along with Sirius being innocent at breakfast, right?" Harry questioned. James nodded. "Right, well, I'm going to go get changed then." And with that, he dashed out of the Gryffindor common room and quickly threw on his robes. As soon as Harry entered the Great Hall, he sat down and waited for Ron and Hermione. He didn't have long to wait before they both appeared at the entrance of the Great Hall, breathing heavily. They swiftly sat down on either side of him. The Great Hall was filling up rather quickly, and Harry couldn't wait for everyone to know about his parents being brought back to life and serious innocence. Not long after Harry, Ron and Hermione had arrived in the Great Hall. The young James, Sirius, Remus, Peter, Arthur, and Lily quickly and quietly sat down near them. After about 15 minutes of Harry staring at his watch, everyone was now seated and looking expectantly up at Dumbledore, who was smiling broadly. "Good morning, everyone. Now, before breakfast starts, I have quite a few things to tell you," Dumbledore said with twinkling eyes. He was looking at Harry in particular. "I assume you all know about Lily and James Potter and what happened to them 14 years ago." "Yeah, you know who killed them." A Ravenclaw girl piped up. The younger James and Lily looked around apprehensively at their friends. As soon as this was said, murmurings and whispers were spread throughout the hall. Dumbledore silenced them, and they looked back to him. "Well, here is some good, although rather shocking news for you all. Lily and James Potter are alive. They were revived last night, with the help of Harry." Everyone looked at Dumbledore in shock and disbelief. "My God, I think he's finally cracked," as Slytherin said, sniggering. "Lily, James, you may come in now," Everyone's head swiveled to the entrance of the Great Hall, where the older James and Lily stood. James winked at Harry and waved to everyone, while Lily smiled. There was an almighty uproar at this, and some people actually passed out. Most people were screaming and not believing what they were seeing. Dumbledore couldn't actually get control over everyone, so in the end, he had to blast a spell from his wand. Everyone turned back to him. "You," Snape cried, jumping from his seat as if he'd received an electric shock. His face was a mixture of anger and hatred as he glared at James, who just grinned. "All right there, Snively?" James asked coolly. All the Gryffindors started sniggering, while Lily elbowed him in the arm. "Shut it, Potter." James just laughed. "You haven't changed at all. Neither have you. You're still an arrogant, big-head Potter." Everyone was now watching from Snape to James as if they were watching a tennis rally. Dumbledore quickly cleared his throat and spoke up. "Lily, James, could you come over here, please?" "Prongs, come sit next to me," Lupin said, smiling happily. He'd left 2 spare seats next to him. James grinned and sat down next to his fellow marauder. Everyone looked at Lily and James in utter amazement. "It's true. They really are the Potters. My parents have got photos of them," Neville Longbottom shouted, to which everyone had actually started to believe that the 2 people in front of them really were Harry Potter's parents. Dumbledore quickly seized his chance and carried on. "Now, I also assume that you have all heard of Sirius Black." "Yeah, he killed Peter Pettigrew and slaughtered 13 Muggles in the process," a Hufflepuff boy shouted. The young Sirius paled considerably, and Peter looked at him in shock with wide eyes. Once again, a babble broke out, and Dumbledore silenced them all again. "But what has this got to do with anything?" a Gryffindor asked. "That's a very good question, and now I'm going to tell you." Dumbledore took a deep breath. Halfway through explaining to everyone about Sirius' innocence, there was a huge bang as the double doors were flung open and Sirius Black stood there smiling. Everyone started screaming, and quite almost every single girl burst into tears. Sirius' smile faded. "Oops, came at the wrong time, didn't I?" James, Lily, and Lupin sighed and nodded. Dumbledore quickly explained the rest to the school. Sirius was freed last night because there was some evidence of what happened that day. Everyone's head swiveled in Sirius' direction, who put on a cheery smile and did a little wave. Suddenly, Harry stood up. "Sirius is innocent, and he helped me get through the Triwizard Tournament last year." Ron and Hermione stood up as well and nodded. "It's completely true," Hermione said. Not many people were convinced. The only people who did look convinced were Cho, Dean Thomas, and Seamus Finnegan. "Well, Sirius, could you please sit down, seeing as there are a few more announcements I'd like to make?" Sirius pouted. "When we get food, I am hungry." The Weasleys, Harry, Hermione, James, Lily, Lupin, and their younger selves started laughing. James looked at Sirius with amusement. "Have you ever thought about anything other than food, Padfoot?" Sirius went to shake his head, then stopped. "Yes, I worry for your son's safety most of the time." Harry went bright red at this statement and looked to his plate. "Sirius, please sit down. The longer you talk, the longer I can't get my announcements out of the way, the longer you have to wait before you can eat," Dumbledore told him with twinkling eyes. Sirius' lower lip wobbled, but he quickly sat down near Harry. He ended up sitting between Ron and Lavender. Lavender looked at Sirius with a horrified look on her face, and she quickly edged her seat nearer to Dean, then clung onto his arm. Dean flushed bright red at this, but put a protective arm around her. Dumbledore smiled and looked around at everyone. Most people were still looking at Sirius apprehensively, as if he was about to get out his wand and start killing everyone in sight. Others looked at him curiously. A few girls were actually giggling amongst themselves and shooting him dreamy looks. Now, Mr. Filch would like to say once again that dung bombs are not allowed in the corridors. If anyone is found with them, they will be given detention. Once again, I must remind you that no one, I repeat, no one is to go wandering the corridors at night. As he said this, his eyes landed on Harry, Ron, and Hermione who tried their best to look innocent, and last but not least, whoever let off those dung bombs in the Slytherin common room and in Professor Snape's room. Will they please turn themselves in, because the longer you leave it, the worse the punishment will get. Fred and George started sniggering, but quickly muffled it with their hands. And now, let the feast begin. With that said, food appeared out of nowhere, and Sirius grabbed hold of anything he could and started eating it. Harry looked at Sirius in amazement. He had just managed to eat a huge dollop of mashed potatoes, peas, pork for roast potatoes, and gravy in less than 2 minutes, and he was still eating. "You must be hungry," Ron said, staring at Sirius. "I'm ravenous. Haven't eaten properly in months," Sirius said through mouthfuls of food. "Padfoot, slow down, or you'll give yourself indigestion," the older James said, walking over to Sirius with a grin on his face. "You'd be really hungry too if you've been feeding off rats for the last 5 months," Sirius said, still chucking food down his throat. James' grin faded and was replaced with a look of horror. "Our rats," he said, looking thunderstruck. Sirius nodded and carried on piling food onto his plate. "I think it was my fault that you were feeding off rats. I was the reason you came back," Harry said, looking apologetic. Sirius looked at Harry with a stern expression on his face. "Don't you go blaming yourself. I had to be a responsible godfather, and so I tried fulfilling my duties. I begged your father to let me be your godfather, and he let me. I couldn't exactly let you and your father down now, could I?" Sirius told him. James looked at him, rather taken aback. "You've really taken this godfather thing seriously, haven't you?" Sirius sighed and rolled his eyes. "What do you think?" "Of course I have." James nodded in approval. "You've grown up, Padfoot. I'm impressed." Sirius immediately jumped up from his chair, grabbed hold of James and got him in a headlock, then started ruffling his hair. "Yeah, Harry, help!" James shouted. Harry just burst out into uncontrollable laughter. "What were you saying about me growing up?" "Huh? I'm not quite as grown up as you think." And with that, Sirius let go of James with a huge grin on his face. James was panting heavily, then without warning, grabbed hold of Sirius and jumped onto his back. "Piggyback!" James yelled. Sirius struggled under James' weight, then finally collapsed onto the floor. Everyone burst out laughing. Harry, Ron, and Hermione actually had tears rolling down their cheeks, and when they looked over to Lily and Lupin, they noticed that they were both shaking their heads, but looking rather amused at the same time. Snape just looked at Sirius and James with narrowed eyes. "You guys never change," Lupin told them. "Hey, Quidditch match in 1 week, people. Ravenclaw versus Gryffindor," Angelina shouted. Everyone started cheering and then started whispering to each other. Harry's heart jumped, then sank. He just realized that he had to play against Cho, but how could he play against her and not hurt her feelings? The worry must have showed on his face, because Sirius immediately looked at him with concern. "Harry, you all right?" Harry looked at Sirius and shook his head. "Want to talk about it?" Harry nodded. Sirius quickly stood up, James doing the same. Harry stood up and followed them out of the Great Hall and made their way into an empty classroom. "What's up?" Sirius questioned him. Harry opened his mouth, went to say something, thought better of it, and shut his mouth again. "What's going on?" Everyone whirled around to see Lily, Lupin, Ron, and Hermione entering the classroom, looking concerned. "There's something wrong with Harry, but he won't tell us what's up," James told them. Ron and Hermione looked at Harry curiously. It took them both a while before it sunk in as to what was wrong with him. "It's Cho, isn't it?" Hermione said suddenly. Harry looked at her and nodded. "Cho? Who's Cho?" James questioned. "Harry's girlfriend and Ravenclaw seeker," Ron smirked. James and Sirius grinned, while Lily and Lupin just smiled. Harry went bright red and glared at Ron. "She is not my girlfriend." "Yeah, sure," Ron smirked. "Anyway, let's just focus on the problem at hand," Hermione said, interrupting Ron. "What's the problem at hand?" Sirius asked. Lily and James smacked their foreheads. "It's pretty obvious, Padfoot. He likes her," James said, looking exasperated. "Oh, suddenly," Comprehension dawned on Sirius' face. Oh, I don't want to hurt her, Harry mumbled. Of course you don't, Hermione smiled. After all, you've liked her for years. Ron grinned. Ron, shut up, Hermione shouted at him. Sheesh, what's with you? Will you just stop it? You're not helping anyone. I'm just Dash. Stating the obvious, we know Harry told him. Ron reddened at this. Actually, I was going to say something else, Ron muttered. Suddenly, there was a noise that sounded like a creak from outside the classroom. What was that? Hermione asked, sounding worried. Probably Snape, trying to find another way to get us expelled, Ron said, looking annoyed. Sirius and James goggled at him. Snape tries to get you guys expelled. James looked aghast. Yep, but I think he only tries to get Ron expelled 'cause he's my friend, and we sort of do almost everything together, Harry told him. Yeah, he absolutely hates Harry, Hermione exclaimed. I wonder why, Ron said sarcastically. Hermione rolled her eyes and tooted. Lupin strode over to the door and peered out. He came back and looking rather amused. What is it, Moony? James asked. Fred and George walked into the classroom, holding something that looked like ears. Is that Dash? Ron goggled at them. Yep, lil bro, it's extendable ears, George said, looking proud. We were just checking to see if they worked, Fred told them. By listening in on other people's conversations, Hermione looked rather outraged. Well, actually, we wanted the Marauders' help on whether we should sell them or not, Fred told them. Fred, George, if you don't get out, I will give you guys detention, Ron told them, looking stern. Fred and George just burst out laughing. Oh yeah, go on, lil bro, give us detention, we don't care. Ron drew himself up to his proper height, looking proud. Well then, I'm a prefect, and if you don't dash. Wham! Ron went flying backwards. Hermione and Harry gasped, while everyone else looked dumbstruck. Save your speech for someone who wants to hear it, Weasley. A drawling voice yelled. There was no mistaking in that voice. It was Draco Malfoy. It appeared that Malfoy had hexed Ron while he was telling his brothers off. Harry whirled around, looking angry. Ron wasn't talking to you, Malfoy, so you had absolutely no right to interfere. Harry yelled. Malfoy smirked. Trying to show off in front of your parents, Potter? Harry started shaking with anger. Harry, calm down. He's doing it on purpose. Hermione whispered to him. Oh, look, the mudbloods trying to calm Potter. Isn't that the most pathetic thing you've ever seen? Malfoy said, sounding amused. Without thinking, Harry lunged for Malfoy, but had to be restrained by both Lupin and James. Harry, calm down, Lily told him. My God, seeing Potter's mudblood mother is enough to make anyone throw up, Malfoy said with a strange gleam in his eye. James immediately released Harry and made a lunge for Malfoy himself, but Hermione got there first. Smack! Hermione had slapped Malfoy with all the strength she could muster. Don't you dare insult Harry's mother. You foul, you evil, you miserable excuse for a dash. Hermione! Ron went to grab Hermione's arm, but Hermione pushed him roughly away. She pulled out her wand and pointed it right at Malfoy's chest. Insult me or Harry's mother again, and I swear you won't live to tell the tale, Hermione said, looking outraged. Malfoy looked at her, taken aback, but quickly walked off. Hermione was still breathing slowly and heavily. She was shaking from head to foot. Hermione, are you all right? Harry asked her, looking concerned. Hermione turned around to look at everyone, who had just watched the little scene with amazement. She looked to them all and then burst into tears. Ron quickly ran over to her and hugged her. Hermione, don't let him get to you, Harry said, trying to reassure his best female friend. What you did was very brave. Thank you for sticking up for me, Lily said, beaming at her. Sirius and James were whispering amongst themselves. Then they turned back to Hermione, who was now being comforted by Lupin, Lily, Harry, Ron, Fred, and George. Hermione, don't cry. You'll make me cry, Sirius said, pretending to look sad. James also did the same. This resulted in Hermione giggling. Sirius grinned. Looks like I've still got the gift for cheering people up. Come on, why don't we go to the Gryffindor common room and have a proper chat about this whole Quidditch thing? Then after that, we can think up ways to get revenge on Malfoy, Lupin added. Everyone else nodded and Fred and George looked mischievous. Mind if we help? Sure, the more, the better. And with that, everyone proceeded to the Gryffindor common room. 1 week from the Christmas, the older Sirius ended up having a huge shock. He was in the staff room, trying to find his cloak, so he could go outside and have a snowball fight with all of his friends. Unfortunately, as he opened the closet, a boggart popped out of it, and Sirius ended up facing his biggest fear. Harry lay on the floor, not moving. His glasses were askew, and he was deathly pale. Sirius gasped, and his knees gave way as he collapsed. His wand rolled out of his hand, and Sirius just stared at Harry's lifeless form with tears welling up in his eyes. Without warning, he burst into tears and covered his face with his hands. It was 10 minutes later when Lupin found him. He took one look at Harry's lifeless body and Sirius' sobs and figured what was going on. He walked towards it and said, "Ridiculous." The boggart burst into wisps of smoke, while Sirius carried on sobbing. Lupin knelt down next to him and gave a manly hug. "It's all right, Padfoot. Harry's fine," Lupin told his friend. Sirius carried on crying. "I'm so pathetic," he choked. Lupin shook his head. "You're not. You just care deeply for Harry because you feel that he's family." Sirius carried on sobbing. Lupin sighed. "Harry's been really worried. He thinks that something bad happened to you. Why don't you go out and see him?" Sirius nodded, picked up his wand, and stuck it into his robe pocket and walked out of the staff room. It was a few minutes before he walked back in, looking rather red in the face. "I forgot my cloak." equals 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 equals. It was the day before the Quidditch match, and Harry was still fretting over what to do about Cho, but at the moment, he was too busy having a snowball fight. Harry, Ron, the young James, the older Sirius, Peter, and Lupin were on one team, while the older James, the young Sirius, Remus, both Lilies and Hermione were on the other. "Come on, Harry. You can throw better than that," the younger Lily yelled out, only to be hit in the face by Ron's snowball. "Oops, sorry, I meant to get Hermione," Ron said, looking apologetic. "Right, Ron Weasley, you're going down." And with that, Lily grabbed hold of a huge snowball and aimed it right at Ron's face. "Lils, that's unfair," James cried. "Who said anything about snowball fights being fair?" Lily questioned. "Hey, Hermione." Hermione whirled around, only to be hit on the forehead by Lupin. Lupin roared with laughter and collapsed onto the ground. Hermione narrowed her eyes and started rolling her sleeves up. "Right, Professor Lupin. You're dead meat." And with that, Hermione picked up a whole load of snow and dumped it on Lupin's head. Everyone burst out laughing at Lupin's face. It was one of sheer horror at something so cold being dumped on him. The older Sirius grinned at Lupin. They both nodded, then grabbed hold of Hermione. Sirius had a hold of her arms, while Lupin had a hold of her legs. "What do you think, your Dash? Put me down," Hermione shouted in fear when she noticed that they were drawing nearer to the lake. "Don't worry, Hermione. We'll save you." Harry Potter and Ron Weasley to the rescue. Harry yelled happily. Harry quickly got hold of a load of snow and aimed it at Sirius' head. His aim was true when he heard a shriek of surprise. Harry James Potter, you'll be next," Sirius shouted. Harry laughed, then quickly made an attempt to free Hermione, but failing miserably. "Mom, help!" Harry called desperately as Sirius and Lupin neared the lake. Hermione screamed in horror, then actually started crying. "No, please. I'll do anything. Jay, just don't throw me in," Hermione cried. Lupin and Sirius quickly put her down as Hermione started hyperventilating. "Hermione!" Harry cried out in alarm. As he moved closer to her, She smiled wickedly and pushed Harry into the lake. Hey, what did you do that for? Ron yelled angrily. Ah, you guys thought I was really scared, Hermione said, laughing. When Harry came up for breath, he had gone blue from the cold. It's FFF freezing in H here. Hermione. I'm gonna kill you. Harry shouted. Don't worry, Harry. We'll get revenge for you, Remus said, and with that, both the young Sirius and Remus picked Hermione up and chucked her in the lake. Unfortunately, Remus lost his balance and went in with her. Oh my God, IIT's bloody freezing in here, Remus shouted, while his teeth were chattering madly. Sirius and James both roared with laughter at this. Remus grinned and whispered something in Harry's ear. Harry grinned back and nodded. They both got out of the lake and made towards the young James and Sirius. No, take me instead of them. Everyone turned, and to Harry's, Ron's and Hermione's surprise, it was Peter. What? Harry questioned him. Don't throw them in. Take me instead of them, Peter told them. Remus looked at him uncertainly. You sure? Yeah. Harry and Remus grinned, grabbed hold of Peter, and threw him in the lake. He came up, gasping for breath. He was shivering madly. Gosh, it's really CC cold in here, Peter said. Peter quickly got out of the lake and wrapped his arms around himself. Isn't there a towel around here? Peter questioned, shakily. No, the older Sirius replied. Hey, Harry. Everyone spun around to see Cho running towards them. Harry quickly got out of the lake, and immediately his hand jumped his hair. Andai, Cho? Harry asked. Just my. I was hoping to talk to you, Cho said, looking hopeful. Sure, okay, Harry said, looking nervously around. Want to talk somewhere else? Cho nodded, and together, they walked off near the Hogwarts entrance. Both the Sirius started sniggering. God prongs, he's just like you. Both of the James smiled. The older Lily couldn't help looking amused. Well, there's one thing that Harry is that you never were, Lily said with a grin on her face. Oh yeah? And what was that? James questioned her. He's sweet. He also seems to be rather nervous around girls. Oh, and he doesn't hex everyone in sight, Lily added. He does seem rather nervous around girls, doesn't he? James said, looking thoughtful. No, he's just nervous in front of Cho, Ron told him. Maybe we should help boost his confidence, Dash. No. Ron and Hermione yelled out in unison. Huh? What? Everyone turned to look at them both, who were going rather red. Why can't we help Dash? Because we like him the way he is. We don't want him turning into a big head, Hermione explained. Ron nodded in agreement. Lupin smiled. The voices of reason, he said, with a hint of amusement in his voice. Well, normally, Hermione's the voice of reason, Ron said. Equals 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 equals. Harry and Cho were standing in an empty classroom. Cho sat on a desk, while Harry tried his best to look cool and leaning against the wall. But he knew he was failing miserably by how hot he felt. Therefore, he knew he was blushing. So what is it? Harry asked. It's about tomorrow's match. Harry felt his stomach lurch. I'll let you in. It's okay. I just don't want to see you get hurt, Dash, Harry said quickly. But he was silenced when Cho placed a finger on his lips. You're going to play like normal. I don't care if I get hurt. I'm not going to take advantage of you. I just want you to play like you did in third year, Cho said quietly. Harry felt himself go hot. Look, I really don't think Dash. Harry, please. Just play like normal. If I get hurt, I'm not going to blame it on you. Let's just pretend we don't know one another tomorrow and try and win for our houses. Then we can talk after the match, okay? Cho said, sounding slightly desperate. Harry nodded. All right, but just so long as neither of us are going to be mad at each other for whoever wins the match tomorrow, agreed? Harry asked, holding out his hand. Cho smiled and shook his hand. Agreed. You know something, Harry? I really like you, Cho said, blushing madly. Harry felt himself go numb with shock as Cho moved closer to him. Oh, really? Harry asked hoarsely. Cho smiled and carried on moving closer to him. Yeah, really, I like you more than a friend, and I think you're really cute, Cho said, going redder by the minute. WL, I really like you too, Harry stammered. Cho was so close to Harry now that Harry could stare into her bright blue eyes. Equals 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 equals. Where is he? Ron cried out for the millionth time that day. Everyone had returned to the Gryffindor common room and had dried off from their snowball fight. He's probably still talking with Cho or something, Hermione said, trying to reassure Ron. James was now pacing the Gryffindor common room. No one seen him? He asked. Everyone shook their heads. James, you don't need to worry. He'll be in the castle somewhere, Lily told him. James ran a hand through his hair. I know, but hey, wait a minute. Do any of you guys know where the Marauders map is? James asked Ron and Hermione. Hey, use this Marauders map, the younger James told his older self. The older James took it gratefully and whispered, I solemnly swear that I am up to no good. When a Marauders map appeared, James' eyes scanned the map. Then his face broke out into a grin. What is it? Sirius asked, looking over his shoulder. He took one look at the map and broke into a grin as well. What is it? Lupin asked. Nothing. Nothing, James said with a smirk on his face. He took another look at the map and gasped. He's coming this way. Quick, put the map away. I don't think he'll appreciate us knowing where he was. Where was he? Ron asked. James waved it away and quickly sat down and tried to engage Lily in a conversation. Harry was still in disbelief when he clambered into the Gryffindor common room. He didn't even notice the hundreds of pairs of eyes on him as entered the common room. Hey, little man, where have you been? James asked casually. Harry looked at him in a daze and sank down into the nearest chair and let out a sigh. I haven't been anywhere, why? What kept you? Ron asked. Harry blushed. Harry muttered something. Is it Cho? Hermione asked. Harry looked at her in surprise, but nodded. Ron sniggered, but stopped when Hermione caught his eye. What did she want? Ron questioned him. Stop interrogating the poor boy. Maybe he doesn't want to tell you, Lily told them. Harry shrugged, but smiled. So what did she want? Ron asked, trying his best to sound casual. Harry began, but his voice seemed to have died in his throat. He cleared his throat and tried again, dash. Did you kiss? Hermione asked, looking curious. James, Sirius, Lupin, and Peter broke into grins, while Lily cocked an eyebrow in curiosity. Ron's eyes widened as he stared at Harry. Well, he demanded. Harry looked around at everyone's expressions. He felt himself go hotter and slowly, but surely he nodded. Ah! Ron cried out as all the males burst into laughter. Lily just beamed at him. A reluctant grin spread over Harry's face as he watched Ron laughing his head off. Well, Ron demanded suddenly, how was it? Both Lilies tooted at this. The older James couldn't help grinning. Weird, Harry said. Weird? What do you mean weird? Peter asked him. It just felt weird, Harry answered. Oh, Ron's smile faded. Well, that's a good description. If someone ever asked you what your first kiss was like, you say it was weird. Harry blushed bright red, while Hermione tooted. Ron, leave him alone. Ron shrugged his shoulders, while Harry started fanning himself with his hand. I'm feeling a bit hot. I'm going to go and have a shower. See you guys later. And with that, Harry dashed up the boys' dormitories. Wait, Harry, there's something Ron and I wanted to ask you. Hermione shouted, racing up the boys' dormitories after him. Everyone looked dumbstruck. Does Hermione always do that? Lupin asked. Ron nodded. Yep. She normally goes up to the boys' dormitories when there's something important going on, or if it's Christmas, Ron told him. Lily smiled. Harry James Potter, open this door or I'll hex you. Hermione's voice could be heard. Sirius laughed nervously. I wouldn't want to be in Harry's shoes right now. Everyone agreed silently. What? Harry asked, sounding angry. Harry, Ron and I wanted to ask you something. Well, what is it? Harry asked. Ron, get up here now. Hermione shouted. Come in, Mum, Ron said cheekily. Ron, I'm warning you. All right, Comet Woman, Ron yelled back. Ron and Hermione quickly made their way into the boys' dormitories, shut the door, and turned around to face Harry. Well, you know about Voldemort, so… Ron, stop it, Hermione said angrily as Ron flinched. Was Rise, you remember when we had that horrible Umbridge woman and you stood up and said that we had to prepare ourselves for the real world? Harry nodded slowly, not knowing where this was going. Well, we were thinking we need a teacher, a proper one, who can show us how to use spells and correct us if we're going wrong. Yeah, we've got Lupin, Harry told them. But Harry, Lupin isn't enough. We need more lessons now, Ron said. Yeah, start a weekend defense against the Dark Arts Club. Lupin will be in charge, Harry said. Ron and Hermione exchanged exasperated looks. Harry, it isn't as simple as that. Lupin's busy most of the time. Well, what are you suggesting then? Harry asked them both, looking curious. Harry, isn't it obvious? We're talking about you. Harry looked at them both confused. Me what? We're talking about you teaching us defense against the dark arts. Harry stared at them both as if they were mad. Are you crazy? Me? It's an idea, Ron said. Harry rolled his eyes and stormed down the boys' dormitories and into the common room. But I'm not a teacher. I can't dash. Harry, you're the best in the year at defense against the dark arts, said Hermione. Me? Harry said, grinning. Come off it. Hermione, you've beaten me in almost every test. Actually, I haven't, Hermione told him. What? You beat me in third year when Lupin taught us, but I'm not talking about exam results, Harry. Think of the things that you've done, Hermione said. Everyone looked at the scene in interest. James, Sirius, Lupin, and Lily were looking confusedly at them. How'd you mean? You know what? I don't think I want a teacher who's this stupid, Ron said, grinning. Harry flushed. Let's think, Ron said. Try his best to look stupid. First year. You saved the Philosopher's Stone from you-know-who. But that was just luck, Harry exclaimed. It wasn't dash. Second year, Ron interrupted him. You killed a basilisk and destroyed Riddle. Yeah, but if Fox hadn't have turned up, I would have dash. Third year, said Ron, raising his voice slightly. You fought off about 100 Dementors at once. That was just a fluke, if the time turner dash. Last year, Ron was almost shouting now. You faced you-know-who again, and… Listen to me, Harry said angrily. Ron and Hermione were both smirking at him. Lily and James's jaws had dropped in shock, while Sirius and Lupin just looked impressed. The younger ones couldn't stop staring at Harry in shock. It sounds great when you guys say it like that, but most of it was just luck. Half the time, I didn't have a clue what I was doing, and… Stop laughing. Hermione and Ron had both burst out laughing. Harry couldn't take it anymore, and he felt his anger erupt. You don't know what it's like, do you? Neither of you never had to face him. You think it's just memorizing a bunch of spells and throwing them at him, like you're in class or something. You can't think straight, and you feel as if you're going to be murdered or tortured, or you have to stand there and watch your friends die. They never taught us that in classes, what it's like dealing with things like that. And you two sit there acting as if I'm some clever little boy to be standing here, alive, like Diggory was stupid, like he messed up, but you don't get it, do you? That could easily have been me. It would have been if Voldemort hadn't have needed me dash. Whoa, Harry, calm down, mate, Ron said, looking alarmed. Everyone stared at Harry in complete shock. See, Harry, this is why we need you. You've had experience facing him, Hermione whispered. Could you at least think about it? Harry's breathing had finally gone back to normal. He nodded slowly. All right, now excuse me, I'm going to bed. And with that, Harry walked off to the boys' dormitories, while everyone looked after him apprehensively. Harry awoke the next morning, wondering why he felt so rotten. It was then that he remembered the Quidditch match. Ravenclaw versus Gryffindor, and he would be playing against Cho. He groaned and rubbed his head, then fumbled for his glasses. When he put his glasses on, Harry looked up to see the young James, Sirius, Remus, Peter, and Arthur smiling broadly at him. "Ready to win?" Sirius asked, looking excited. Yeah," Harry said, not sounding all too enthusiastic. "Don't worry, Harry. I'm sure that Cho won't be mad at you when we win." Peter grinned. Harry tried his best to avoid Peter's gaze. After all the time that they'd been in the past and in his present time, he'd mostly been avoiding him. "Harry, what's up?" James questioned him, looking worried. "Huh? Oh, in nothing." Harry quickly shot up out of bed and dashed into the toilet. As soon as he slammed the door, he let out a sigh of relief. He couldn't stand being in the same room as Peter. Seeing him made him want to hurt him so badly. There was a loud yawn, and Ron's voice could be heard. "Where's Harry?" he said, stifling another yawn. "He's gone into the loo," Arthur said. "All right." After 10 minutes, Harry walked out of the toilet. He'd just finished getting dressed. The thing he worried about most was seeing Cho. "I'm going down to the Great Hall. See you guys later." And with that, Harry ran off. Sirius raised an eyebrow. "What's with him?" "Oh, nothing," Ron said, avoiding their gazes. "I think I know," James said quietly. "What is it, prongs?" Sirius asked. James shook his head. "Maybe you should ask your older selves. I'm sure that they'll be glad to tell you about a certain marauder's betrayal," James growled. "A marauder's betrayal?" Sirius questioned in alarm. Ron was glaring all the while at Peter, but luckily no one was paying attention to him as they all started guessing who it was. "Well, it's obviously not you two," Arthur told them. "How do you know?" Remus asked him. "Well," James said, "they'll be glad to tell you about a certain marauder's betrayal." "I think he means that it isn't you two," Arthur said. Sirius shrugged, but looked around apprehensively. "Morning, everyone." Lily burst into the room, looking cheerful. Her smile faded when she saw the looks on everyone's faces. "What's up with you guys?" "Something Prongs said," Remus told her. "What did he say?" Peter quickly explained everything to her, although everyone noticed that Lily avoided his stare. "Lils, what's up?" Remus asked her. "What? Why won't you look at Peter?" "I am looking at Peter," Lily insisted. "You're not, and I've noticed that neither is James." "Don't be silly," Lily said, smiling again. Sirius eyed her suspiciously. "Oh, for goodness sake, I'm going to Great Hall for breakfast. See you guys down there." And with that, Lily walked off. Half an hour later, everyone, except James, who was still getting ready, made their way down to the Gryffindor common room, only to find Harry sitting down in one of the chairs and staring into the fire. "Hey, Harry, what are you doing here?" "I thought you were going to have breakfast," Ron said, looking worriedly at his friend. "I wasn't hungry," Harry replied. Ron noticed that he kept his eyes on the fire. "Well, you need to eat something, otherwise you won't have any energy on the pitch," Ron said, earnestly. Harry looked up at them. Arthur and Sirius were looking worriedly at him, while Remus and Peter had books on them. Remus was already engrossed in Hogwarts, a history, while Peter just looked at the back of the book he was holding. Ron just smiled at him. Harry sighed. "All right, I'll come down to breakfast, but I can't promise you that I'll eat anything." When Harry made his way to exit the common room, Peter accidentally dropped the book on his foot. "Ow, watch what you're doing," Harry said, looking furious. Sorry, Peter squeaked. He bent down to pick up the book and ended up brushing against Harry's leg. Harry quickly backed away, pulled out his wand, and aimed it straight at Peter. As if on automatic, Sirius and Remus strode forward and stood in front of Peter, pulled out their wands, and aimed them at Harry. Needless to say, looked extremely upset. Something stirred inside Harry's mind when he saw this. Something that Sirius once said. Flashback. "I'll never understand why I didn't see you were the spy from the start. You always liked big friends who'd look after you, didn't you? It used to be us, me, Remus, and James. In flashback, Harry looked coldly to Peter. Still need your friends to look after you? Can't you fight your own battles? What? Peter stammered. Harry still had his wand raised, as if he would hex Peter at any minute, but seeing as Sirius and Remus were still standing in the way, with their wands poised, he couldn't really do anything. That was how everyone else found them when the older James, Sirius, Lupin, Lily, and the younger James arrived. They all froze, and Harry didn't bother looking at anyone else. He couldn't seem to stop himself from glaring at Peter. Peter was just twitching in fear. What's going on here? Lupin questioned sharply. That's what I'd like to know, James said, narrowing his eyes at Remus and Sirius. Sirius, Remus, stand aside, the older James said, looking stern. It was at that moment that Remus and Sirius seemed to realize what they were doing. They dropped their arms to their sides and looked at Harry apologetically. They then moved out of Peter's way, so that Harry was in clear view of him. Harry didn't lower his wand, though. His face was contorted with rage, and he still stared straight at Peter. Needless to say, looked absolutely horrified. Harry, lower your wand, Lupin whispered. Harry seemed to not have taken any notice of Lupin as he still had his wand poised. He then yelled out, Rictus Sempra. Peter went flying back into the wall. Everyone's eyes widened as Harry moved in to use another spell, but he was stopped by Sirius. Sirius, let go of me. I'll murder him, Harry shouted. Harry, calm down. You're not helping anyone, Sirius said, struggling to keep Harry from attacking Peter. Why are you even protecting him? Harry shouted out loudly. He betrayed Mum and Dad and landed you in Azkaban. Why are you protecting him? Sirius paled at this. Then his eyes darted to the older Lily and James, who were looking worried. Peter's eyes widened in horror and shock as soon as this was said. The younger Sirius and Remus' jaws dropped as they turned to glare at Peter. The younger James just took a deep breath, but not taking his eyes off Peter. Harry, calm dash. No, I won't calm down. You can't make me. Harry yelled out. Harry, if you don't calm down, you won't be able to play in today's match, Lupin told him. Well, good, because I don't want to play, Harry cried, and with that, he ran up to the boys' dormitories. Equals 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 equals. The older James slowly opened the fifth-year boys' dormitory and peeked inside. Harry had his head pressed against his knees. It looked like he was crying. James knocked lightly on the door. Can I come in? He asked, looking apprehensive. Harry looked up with a tear-stained face and nodded. James awkwardly walked over to Harry's bed and perched himself on the edge of it. I'm sorry. I've let you all down. I understand if you hate me. What are you talking about? James asked him, looking confused. The Quidditch match and in attacking Pettigrew. I shouldn't have attacked him, but I felt this anger that needed to be released and I took it out on him. But then again, I do have my reasons, Harry added. James smiled at him and gave him a hug. I know it must be difficult with you liking Cho and that she's the Ravenclaw seeker, but you two talked about that, didn't you? Or did you talk about something else? Harry's head jerked up when this was said, and he noticed that his father's eyes were, like Dumbledore's, twinkling. Why, yeah, we did talk about that, Harry said. And? What did she say? James questioned him. She told me to just play like normal. She said she didn't care if she got hurt, and that she wouldn't be mad at me. She asked me to pretend that I don't know her while we play the match. James beamed at him. Looks like you've got yourself a really nice girl. I just don't want to see her get hurt, Harry said, looking miserable. I'm sure she won't get hurt, James said reassuringly. You don't get it, though. I normally end up pretending to see the snitch. It's called the wrong see feint, and normally the other seeker gets badly hurt because they smash into the ground, Harry told him, while sounding upset. Well, I know it'll probably be hard for you, But if that's what she wants you to do, then you should respect her wishes and do as she says. Harry slowly nodded, then sat bolt upright. All right then, let's go, Harry said, and with that, he rushed out of the boys' dormitories. James chuckled as he followed. Equals 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 equals. Everyone watched in amazement as Harry bolted down his breakfast. Whoa, I've never seen Harry eat so fast. What on earth did you say to him? Ron asked James. James grinned. Let's just say we had a little father-son chat, Ron grinned. Isn't this the last match of the season? Sirius questioned Hermione. Hermione nodded. Yeah, we've already beaten Hufflepuff. We just need to beat Ravenclaw and Slytherin. I can't wait. Lily squealed. Come on, guys, we'd better hurry, otherwise all the good seats will be taken, Hermione yelled, and with that, both James, Sirius, Remus Lilies, Peter, and Arthur all ran out to the Quidditch pitch. Equals 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 equals. While Harry was getting changed, Cho quickly slipped in to see him. Hiya, Potter. Harry looked up startled and blushed at seeing Cho. He jaw. Ready to lose, Potter? Cho said, grinning cheekily. In your dreams, Chong. Cho giggled and stared at Harry. You may look cute and act sweet, but you're an absolute devil on the Quidditch pitch. Harry blushed bright red. Well, I can't wait to see Gryffindor win against Ravenclaw, can you? Harry questioned, looking casual, but grinning at the same time. Cho flushed at this. In your dreams, Potter, Ravenclaw won't lose to hooligans like you. Harry and Cho stared at each other, then burst out laughing. Well, good luck, Potter. May the best seeker win, Cho said, emphasizing his last name. Same to you, Chong, Harry said with a huge grin on his face. Cho winked at him, then ran off, while Harry just stood there staring after her. Equals 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 equals. Hello everyone, and welcome to the last match of the season. Our last match before Christmas is Ravenclaw versus Gryffindor. Lee Jordan bellowed. Cheers erupted from the Gryffindor and the Ravenclaw stands. Meanwhile, in the changing rooms, Ron and Harry were just getting ready to mount their brooms. I'm really nervous, Ron said, looking very pale. Harry glanced nervously at Ron. You'll be fine. Just remember your training, Harry said, trying to reassure him. Ron, you'll do fine. You're a Weasley, remember that. If we can do it, then so can you. Fred told him. Ron perked up a bit at this. Yeah, you're right. I can do this, Ron said, sounding a bit more confident. Harry breathed a sigh of relief, then mounted his broom. The Gryffindor and the Ravenclaw Quidditch teams started to take their positions. And Gryffindor has a new keeper, believe it or not. It's another Weasley, folks. Ronald Weasley. Oi, Ron Weasley to you, Ron shouted. Oops, sorry, Ron, Fred and George told me to call you that. Jordan, McGonagall's voice sounded stern. Right, Madam Hooch is about to start the game. Look, there goes the snitch, followed by the bludgers. Madam Hooch throws the quaffle into the air, and the game begins. Immediately, as soon as this was done, both Harry and Cho started searching for the snitch. Amazingly, while the game was playing, it actually ended up becoming rather dirty. The Ravenclaws were starting to act like the Slytherins as they were trying desperately to score goals. One of the Ravenclaw beaters aimed a bludger right at Harry, which Harry missed by inches. Cho screamed and looked back to the Ravenclaw beater with a glare. Jordan definitely had something to say about that. You cheating be dash. Jordan, watch your language, McGonagall yelled. At one point, Harry's stomach lurched when he saw the snitch. He dived down and Cho, noticing what Harry was doing, quickly cut across him. She somehow managed to block him. Like what had happened in third year, Harry swerved to avoid a collision. Harry, this is no time to be a gentleman. Knock her off her broom if you have to. Angelino roared from scoring a goal. Harry flushed, not really knowing what to do. He looked around and noticed that the snitch had vanished. Cho was grinning at him. Sorry, Potter, but I had to do that. Harry grinned back at her. Sure you are. Harry quickly shot upwards, then circled around looking for the snitch again. He felt his stomach lurch again. He had to trick Cho, otherwise she'd just keep blocking him. Even if he had a firebolt and she had a Comet 260, she still managed to block him every time he got near the snitch. Harry took a deep breath and dived. And look, I think Potter's spotted the snitch. Lee Jordan screamed. Cho quickly tailed after him. Right at the last minute, Harry pulled up out of his dive, while Cho carried on sailing downwards. She screamed as she hit the ground. Harry took one look at her and noticed that she was unconscious. Harry shut his eyes and looked away. Guilt flooded through him. Boos and angry remarks could be heard from the Ravenclaw side. Another glint of gold caught Harry's attention. Harry sped downwards. Dives were his specialty. He put on a burst of speed and caught the snitch. As he pulled up, he held up his clenched fist to tumultuous applause. Without thinking, Harry dived down next to Cho and jumped off his broom. He knelt down beside her, while Madame Pomfrey was examining her. Is she going to be all right? Harry asked. Of course, she'll be fine, Potter. She just needs to get rid of some of those grazes, and I'm sure we can wake her up. Madame Pomfrey pulled out her wand and muttered, "Innervate." Cho's eyes fluttered open as Harry hugged her. I'm so sorry, he sobbed. Cho smiled as she hugged him back. Harry, what did I tell you yesterday? It's all right. I'm taking it that you guys won. Harry nodded. Congratulations. Cho's eyes filled with tears. Cedric would have been disappointed in me, but I bet he would have comforted me like you're doing now. Harry quickly stiffened and pulled away from Cho's embrace. Harry, what is it? Cho asked him. Harry shook his head. It's nothing, he said quietly. I'd better get going then. And with that, he walked over to where the Gryffindor Quidditch team were celebrating. The next morning, the older Lily walked into the Great Hall, smiling broadly. She sat down next to James and gave him a peck on the cheek and beamed at Sirius and Lupin, who were sitting on the other side of the table. Morning all. How are you today? James looked at her quizzically. You're rather cheerful today. What's up? Lily grinned. You know my two best friends from school? Oh, you mean Rose and Sally? James questioned. Lily nodded. They're coming to Hogwarts today, Lily said, sounding excited. Sirius and Lupin, who were drinking their pumpkin juice, immediately spat it out. Sirius looked at Lily aghast. What? Please tell me you're kidding. Yeah, you were joking, right? Lupin asked, looking terrified. Lily raised an eyebrow at them. What's with you two? Nothing. It's just, they're scary, Lupin told her. Sirius nodded furiously. I don't believe either of you two. There's something you're not telling me. What is it? Lily asked them, folding her arms and looking sternly at them. Sirius fidgeted nervously, while Lupin looked at his plate. Lily noticed that they'd both gone extremely pale. What is it? Lily repeated. Nothing, Sirius insisted desperately. Then, quick as a flash, he dashed out of the Great Hall. Lupin doing the same. Lily watched them, feeling confused. Am I missing something here? She questioned, looking to James. James shrugged. Don't ask me, Cass. I don't have a clue. Lily pulled a face, then became thoughtful. I wonder what they're hiding. Equals 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 equals. While this was going on, two women had arrived along with two 15-year-olds. They knocked on Dumbledore's office and waited a few minutes before Dumbledore asked them to enter. One of the women opened the door, and they all walked in. "Professor Dumbledore, sir. How good to see you again." "Arose, Sally. What a pleasant surprise. Please sit down." Sally had black hair, which was flecked with gray bits, blue eyes. She was rather pale, and she was rather thin. Rose had blonde hair, blue eyes. She was fairly tanned, and she was quite slim as well. Well, Dumbledore, we've got two young ones with us in Dash." "Hey, we're not young," a male's voice yelled. Dumbledore chuckled softly. "Why don't your other guests come in?" Both of the women sighed before beckoning the two 15-year-olds in. "Albus, I'd like you to meet Jay Black," Rose said. "And this is Emily Lupin," Sally said, looking happy. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled as he looked from one to the other. Jay looked exactly like Sirius, except he had blue eyes instead of brown. He wore robes that were a bit worn out, but he grinned as he walked in. Emily had light brown hair, which also had a bit of gray in it that fell down to her waist. She had blue eyes as well. She was rather thin, and her robes were quite shabby, but she looked happy all the same. "Albus, it's a pleasure to finally meet you," Jay said, smiling broadly. "Jay, don't be disrespectful to Dumbledore," Rose scolded him. Jay smirked as Rose continued to rant and rave. Dumbledore smiled. "It's quite all right, Rose. He can call me Albus." "But Professor," Rose said, looking appalled. "He's just like his father. He won't listen to you," Dumbledore said quietly. Rose rolled her eyes, then looked to Sally, and they both shared exasperated looks. "I think we should get Remus and Sirius up here so they can see their children," Dumbledore said, smiling. Rose and Sally fidgeted nervously. Albus, they don't know about Jay and Emily," Sally said quietly. "What?" Dumbledore said sharply. "They dash," Sally cleared her throat. "Jay, Emily, can you just wait outside the door for a minute?" Jay and Emily glared at Sally, but obeyed and waited outside. As soon as this was done, Sally took a deep breath. "Albus, Sirius, and Remus used us both for one-night stands when Lily and James died. They comforted us, then slept with us. When we both woke up, they were gone," Sally said, sounding sad. Dumbledore looked at them both sympathetically. "I think they may have felt guilty afterwards and panicked," Dumbledore said. "What do you mean?" Rose questioned. "Well, they may have thought that they took advantage of you and Dash." "They did take advantage of us," Sally said, raising her voice. "Why didn't you stop then?" Dumbledore asked. Sally remained silent. "See, I don't think you realized at the time. I think when Sirius and Remus awoke, they realized what they had done and regretted it. So they ran off." "That does make sense," Rose said, nodding. Sally agreed silently. "So is Emily a Dash?" Dumbledore asked. Sally nodded and smiled weakly. "Of course she is. She's the offspring of Remus and me. We're both werewolves, so naturally she's one as well." Suddenly, the door burst open and Lily stood there, smiling. They all took one look at each other and screamed. Then they all gave each other hugs. "Oh, I missed you so much," Sally said, with tears pouring down her face. "Me too," Rose said, also crying. "Me three," Lily said, and they all started to laugh. "Did you see Emily and Jay?" Rose asked. Lily looked puzzled. "Who?" "Emily and Jay. You know, the young girl and boy, about the age of 15. Lily carried on looking puzzled and shook her head. "No, I didn't see them." Rose's and Sally's jaws dropped. "Please tell me you're joking," Sally said, sounding worried. Lily shook her head. "Who are Emily and Jay?" Lily questioned. "Remus and Sirius kids." Lily's jaw dropped. "They weren't standing outside Dumbledore's office?" Rose asked. Lily shook her head again. "Oh God, we gotta find them," Rose said, sounding frantic. "Don't worry. I'm sure they're somewhere in the castle," Lily said, reassuringly. "They'd better be, otherwise I'll never forgive myself." equals 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 equals. The young Sirius, Remus, James, Arthur, and Lily were wandering the castle when a voice made them stop in their tracks. Jay, if you don't give it back, I'll rip your head off. Well, if you go out with me, I'll give it back, a taunting voice said. There is absolutely no way that I am ever going to go out with you. The female voice screamed. Fine, I'm not giving it back then. Jay Black, give me my wand. Sirius looked startled as a boy who looked just like him came flying past. He could have passed as his twin, except that the other boy had blue eyes. A girl who looked like the female version of Remus grabbed hold of the boy round the waist, and they both went crashing to the floor. Now, give me my wand, Emily panted. No, Jay said simply. He had a huge grin on his face. Hey, Jay, and Emily looked up to see a boy with black, untidy hair, brown eyes, and glasses. He was looking at them with a strange glint in his eye. Give her back her wand, James said, looking stern. Well, I might give her back her wand if she'll go out with me, Jay said, grinning even more broadly. Emily glared at him, then slapped him round the face. I would never go out with you, even if it was the choice between you and the giant squid. EMS, what's your problem? It's only one date, Jay exclaimed. The problem is I don't like you. You're a player. You think you can charm any girl you meet. You hex people who annoy you. Just because you can, you think you're so great. Because you play Quidditch, you mess up your hair all the time. Like what you're doing now, she hissed. Jay, who had put his hand up to ruffle his hair, quickly dropped his hand to his side. He sounds like prongs, Sirius muttered to Lily and Remus. You do like me? We've been best friends for years. Jay insisted. Yes, maybe so, but I'm getting tired of you asking me out 24/7. Emily said, her eyes ablaze. James cleared his throat. Excuse me, but Dash. You stay out of this. Emily shouted at him. Hey, don't yell at him. You don't even know him. Jay said, sounding angry. Jay, I swear if you don't give me back my wand, I'm going to dash. You're going to what? Jay asked. Well, let's put it this way. My fist is going to connect with your face. Emily said, sounding annoyed, of course. That won't happen if you give me my wand, she added. She sounds awfully violent, Lily whispered. Listen here, Lupin. I'm not afraid of you. You're just a girl, Jay said, looking seriously annoyed. Ooh, we're on last name basis now, are we? All right then, Black. I'm going to give you to the count of 3 to give me my wand back, or you're going to regret it. 1, 2. Quick as a flash, Jay threw her wand back to her. Emily smiled. There's a good boy. Shut it, Jay said, through gritted teeth. Everyone's jaw had dropped as they realized that the girl and the boy in front of them were Sirius and Remus kids. So, what would you have done if I hadn't have given it to you, eh? Bitten me? Jay asked, looking amused. Emily scowled. Shut up. I probably would have punched you. Of course. I'll remember to stay away from you at full moon, Jay. Then, realizing what he had just said, clapped a hand to his mouth and turned back to Emily with wide eyes. Emily looked at him with a mixture of hurt and shock on her face. I'm sorry, I didn't mean Dash. Yeah, right. Don't give me that crap. You're always using my condition against me. I tell you what, just leave me alone, Black. And with that, Emily stormed off. What on earth is going on out here? A voice asked. Out of the classroom came the older Remus Lupin and Sirius Black. I heard most of that, but I didn't catch the names, Sirius said, looking curious. Jay had gone extremely pale, and he was breathing heavily. Then, without warning, he burst into tears.